Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ashland Planning Board meeting, Thursday, December 14th, 2023. We will have two public hearings tonight that involve the 320 Pond Street, the current site of Mozzie's Restaurant, and 400 Cedar Street, which is a special permit with T-Mobile. The third public hearing we do have listed 9 to 49 Homer Avenue has asked for a continuance, and so we will deal with that when we get there. But first on the agenda tonight, well, first I'll call the meeting to order at 7:20 and remind everyone that the meeting obviously is being broadcast and recorded. 3 members of our board all have illness-related reasons for not being here. Tis the season, so we have 3 of our members there in person and 3 members, including our associate member, who are online. So it really is a very hybrid meeting this evening. So everyone can have hopefully patience as we go back and forth a little bit. Other than that, the first thing on our agenda is the clerk's report. Kate, are you ready with the clerk's report this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair. The planning board has received 8 emails since the last planning board meeting. Few of them have come in the past day or so I have not responded, and some of those are for a hearing tonight, so we may hear from some of those people as well.
Okay, great, thank you. At this time, I will, the next item on our agenda is public comment. I will open it up for general public comment. If you have a comment that best fits under one of our agenda items today, it would probably be best to wait until that agenda item if you can. Otherwise, I will open it up for public comment, limiting it to 3 minutes per resident.
So we have one person at the podium at this time. Mr. Mark DeSoni, please introduce yourself with your name and address.
Okay, Mark DeSoni, 49 Hawthorne Road. Sorry to hear about all the illnesses. It is the season. I'm going to ask a question that will be involved in the 2 agenda items, and I'm just going to ask how it can be run better. Because each usually agenda item, no matter what it is usually takes about an hour to go through. I'd like to ask the question, halfway through, 40 or so minutes into it, why can't you stop in and ask citizens' participation so you can get fresh ideas to keep going at a better pace? Why can't that happen?
Well, I'll answer that. Sometimes that does happen, Mark, that every public hearing is different. Every meeting is different. And so we go by what we are doing that evening and when is the most appropriate time for public comment. So often everything doesn't fit into such a rigid, formulaic way of doing things, but we'll certainly try to get in public comment on all the agenda items this evening.
Because the reason why I'm saying that, because when I watch it at home, I kind of know that it goes on for a pretty good amount of time, and I turn my Zoom on, and I take the headphones off, turn the TV on because it's on WACA, and then I listen from there. I stretch out on my bed so I won't fall asleep sitting down. Because I know there's a lot of detail that happens, but if people can get involved more, they'll be more active to the public. That's about it for now. So if it can change for the better for public to pick up the pace in it, it'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeSoni. At this current time, there are no other public comments.
Okay, we will then go to the first item on our agenda, the first public hearing, which is 320 Pond Street. For anyone listening at home, this is the current Mozzie Restaurant building. Peter, do you have an introduction to that?
Yes, so tonight is the opening of the application. So I'm just going to hopefully, bear with me while I read this into the public record. The planning board will open the public hearing to hear the petition for J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., requesting site plan review and design review per Chapter 40A, Section 6 of the Massachusetts Zoning Act, and Chapter 282, comment 9.6 design review and 9.4 site plan review of the Ashland bylaws. The applicant is proposing the development of the existing site of 320 Pond Street. A financial institution known as Chase Bank will operate internally within the typical bank hours with a secure ATM vestibule open 24 hours a day. The overall project site is 38,333 square feet, and the adaptive work will consist of exterior improvements, pedestrian safety, and property maintenance. The property in question is located at 320 Pond Street, Assessors Map 26, Lot 209, and is within the base zoning district, Highway Commerce, and the overlay district, Pond Street Mixed Use Overlay District. So at this current time, we, the planning board, have received this application, and we are opening up the hearing for site plan approval. And so representing the application, I would like to introduce Josh Klein and also Mr. Andy Fitz. So Josh and Andy, I will make you co-host so you can share your screen, and please proceed with your presentation.
Great, thank you, and thank you for having us tonight. So again, my name is Josh Klein. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design. We are the site civil as well as the traffic engineer on the project. We're excited to be in front of the board this evening and kind of start the process. So I definitely will be brief. I'm happy to answer any questions. We kind of understand, we'll be back in front of the board as we kind of work through the process. But just to kind of share my screen and kind of highlight what we're on, just to kind of show the site. So, this is an adaptive reuse application. Chase is going to be kind of maintaining the building for the application, maintaining the parking areas and the access. But we will be doing, kind of some cleanup around the site. So I think a couple areas I just want to kind of highlight is that large kind of trash enclosure, kind of the large freezer on the right-hand side of the building. And then this picture does a nice job. You could see those improvements that were done with the DOT that kind of damaged a lot of the landscaping over there. So just had to exit out. What I wanted to kind of pop open is the landscape plan. I'll kind of orient the site and then show just some visuals of the building. So kind of highlighting those key areas. Again, there's not much site improvement. The site is really kind of locked in a lot of ways. The access can't really be modified. The parking areas, we're maintaining the building. So our goal really is to try to kind of clean the site up, introduce some additional landscaping features, and really make the site operate well and operate safely. So Chase is going to be removing the trash enclosure that I highlighted and kind of putting a smaller enclosure in the place of where the freezer is. So that external freezer is being removed. They're introducing some additional landscaping. And what will be really nice about that is it will kind of help soften up this viewpoint. I think if you've been out there today and seen this facade of the building, a lot of mechanicals, freezer equipment, there's really no landscaping. Then we'll kind of go through and freshen up the landscaping around the site. We're going to be providing new ADA parking spaces. The current spaces do not meet the slope requirements. And then applicant's also going to go in and we're going to kind of clean up the frontage. So there's a lot of landscaping that was damaged that was part of the original approval. So what we're proposing is kind of going in and replacing any of those shrubs that might have been damaged during the DOT improvements and kind of replanting kind of Pond Street again to kind of bring the site up to standard when Chase moves in. So that's kind of the quick overview of the site. Again, it's really kind of a tenant fit out in a lot of ways. Chase is kind of coming into this restaurant space and kind of building it out. Wanted to pull up the color elevations as well. These were submitted. I think this does a nice job kind of showing the architectural features. One of the things I like looking at is you can kind of see that new landscaping by the trash that's being proposed. Again, kind of softening that section of the building. Again, you can see some of the parking lot plantings and kind of the new architecture of the building. We also submitted, which I will kind of jump to, is just a 3D representation kind of the proposed improvements. So again, kind of Chase looking to, kind of bring in their own standards and branding to the existing building, but again, kind of maintaining the massing, the parking areas, kind of the improvements out there today. That's really a high level, look at the application. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions and kind of get into any of the technicalities as well.
All right. So thank you for the brief overall presentation. I think at this time, I'd just like to open it up to the planning board for any, obviously, any general questions, comments about where the project is at this time.
I can start with one. We received an email to the board asking about, I think that was publicized about, because it's a restaurant, there's grease traps and they're going to be removed. And I think it was just a valid comment. Is there any way they're not completely removed, saved, because uses over time change? And I think it was just in keeping with sort of a green community of Ashland, not taking away resources that could be used. And also if someday that was a restaurant again, it would save someone money going in. And I don't think, I just wanted to make sure that was raised. I don't see thoughts of the applicant on that.
Yeah, again, we'll have to work with, the health department and building department to confirm if there's a way that we can do that successfully, but it's definitely something we can bring up to the team to see if they can accommodate.
And then I think I have, if I remember correctly on the submission, thank you for very detailed of matching up with bylaws and requirements. And I might be misremembering this, but I think along the front, there is missing a tree to be compliant with our bylaws. And I think you said maybe it's not going to really fit, but I wonder if there's a way to revisit that or somewhere on the property.
No.
No?
I can hear you.
Oh, I can hear everybody now.
Okay. I was wondering if Kate was referring to trees that might be missing from parking areas, just to understand her question more fully.
Well, I was going to bring that, but I think if the parking's not changing, I'm not sure that we can talk about that, but maybe we can. But I think it was, well, sure, yes, let's ask about that. And I think along the front, it said that there was one short from what would be required. But they were kind of matching what's there.
Yeah, so we do meet the parking lot trees. So the, kind of the restaurant only had 3 of them. We did add an additional 2 trees. We did have to kind of offset them a little bit. The site's kind of riddled with sewer drainage water easements. So even if you wanted to, build a new building, you really probably couldn't. Just there's so many easements. But we were able to get the parking lot trees. The site was approved with 3 street trees, so we're kind of maintaining those existing street trees. I can kind of share the share. We are kind of looking to supplement all that landscaping along the front and kind of infilling what's out there today. But again, so we had these kind of 3 trees. We added 2 additional, kind of avoiding a water line and an easement. And then there's these 2 trees along the frontage, and then this additional tree here. So those are those 3 existing street trees that are going to be protected.
Did you have any other questions, Kate, before I jump in?
I'm good for now, thank you.
And please, it'd be a little bit difficult from being virtual to obviously being in the room. So jump in, planning board, as you need to. It's hard for me to see everybody. But my question was in the documentation that was submitted to the town, it seems like on one of the elevations or maybe multiple elevations, one side of the building is for Chase, and then another side of the building is maybe for something else. And I was wondering if there's more information about that.
It's a great question. So, I mean, the Chase Bank will not be taking the full building. So there is kind of available space for a future tenant, but at this time, as part of the site plan approval application, we're just proposing the Chase Bank. So, the hope is, something may work out. Maybe Chase expands into that future space, or in the future, if Chase is able to collaborate with another tenant. But we are just here for the Chase at this point.
Other questions from the planning board?
Tricia, I'll jump in.
Okay.
So, in looking at the site, I think this project makes a lot of sense. My questions were just out of curiosity. I was reading a little bit about Chase's solar power and EV charging station efforts around the country. I think Chase has been kind of leading that way. As you might know, Ashland, the town of Ashland, through its town meeting about a year or so back, approved a net zero initiative. And as a planning board, we've been more sensitive to those types of initiatives. Are you at all interested in trying some solar on the site or having some EV charging stations on site that are public where people can bring their car and do that? And then in addition, as you know, that route 126 is going to have some bike paths on it. Any possibility of maybe having some storage for bikes or a place for folks who are moving down 126 on bikes to pull over and rest, some sort of maybe a place for them to sit or a place to leave a bike, anything like that you're willing to do?
Yeah, it's great feedback and great questions. So the good news is I have a little bit of time to kind of get with the team to discuss it. So what we'll do is kind of between now, when we go to the design review process and come back, we'll meet with the team and kind of see what initiatives or ideas we might be able to kind of bring in front of the board.
That'd be great. And just to clarify, I don't think I'm suggesting that the board require that. This is not a special permit. It's more of a conversation to see if Chase would be willing to do that. And if we can find some ability to partner that way, and it would be exciting for Ashland and hopefully exciting for you as well as the applicant.
Peter, a question for Peter Machek. At what point in the process, I mean, this site obviously was before the planning board, not too many years ago. But I assume it still needs to go through, given any changes in parking, needs to go through some kind of technical review with the police department and the fire department. Would that be happening soon in this process?
Yeah, so these plans are going to have been distributed to the to the fire department and police department. That hasn't been done. Well, it has been done. I just haven't received any comments back.
Could we augment that request to sort of see that if there is willingness by the applicant to have some EV charging stations for cars, that would be reviewed by the fire department as well?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so obviously it's an early stage, and we're happy to have a tech review meeting. That hasn't been developed yet. However, we're happy to. And I've spoken with the applicant. I know I understand their time frame and their timeline. But the plans have been circulated, and comments will be kind of fed back through the planning board.
Any other questions from the board? If I could
go ahead.
I just wanted to state for the record that although I'm not a direct abutter, I do live at the condos at Leechmere behind Shaw's, and I think I'm like within 100 feet of being a direct abutter, but I'm not. So I just want to make sure that the public is aware that I do live fairly close, but I'm not technically in a butter, and therefore I am allowed to be in this decision process. But I wanted to disclose it for the applicant and the public.
Thank you. And I had wanted to, not knowing at the time that we'd have such a split meeting, I did have, and I think it went forward, had Peter put in the binders. Peter, let me know if it wasn't able to happen, but to have the bylaws that relate to the site plan review and design plan review.
You know, Tricia, I apologize. You did ask me, and I dropped the ball. So I was focused on getting other things in the packet. So apologies.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, like I said, we ended up to have a very split format here unexpectedly this evening. So I had just wanted to, given that, Amanda is new to the board, and this type of project of kind of change of use in a way is fairly new, that I was going to kind of direct our attention a little bit to what are the requirements of site plan review, what we're looking for in that context. And I don't think we need to go through the whole list here. I think the board has a general understanding, but maybe those, we can make sure those are in the, in for next time or sent around. The things that go into site plan review are both basic things like wetlands, scenic views, minimizing vegetation removal, screening objectionable features, different things about utilities, noise abatement, parking, things like that, zoning requirements. So it's a little bit different list, as we know, than a special permit. But I'll let the board review those, on their own. Obviously, this is just opening this project, but we're going to pay attention to those. And the other thing is that will be, I assume, we wanted this to open here, but it might move fairly quickly to the design review committee that will be looking at, really looking at carefully the exterior facade. And given Marcelo and I's review of those criteria in fair detail in dealing with 9 to 49 Homer, I just wanted to, those were going to be in the binders as well, but I thought I'll just briefly read through those so we kind of know what goes into the design review committee, which this project would trigger. One is landscape, of course. Number 2 is building orientation. But under building orientation, there's a number of considerations: height, street facade, spacing of buildings or signs, materials, textures, and colors, roof slopes, and scale. Obviously, some of those are relevant to an existing building, and some of them are not. Number 3 is open space, landscape, and usable. Heritage, so anything historic, probably not a lot on this site. Pedestrian access, which would include bicycle facilities. And actually, that's the last one for actual criteria. So I just wanted to kind of list those out, knowing that what we will be, if we're ready to send it right away to the design review committee, that would be the list of what we would be asking them to investigate. Marcelo?
Yeah, you beat me to the punch on that one. I've been looking at the bylaws, and to me, I mean, from what I've seen, this project seems to be more of a straightforward type of project. I think the improvements make sense. I agree with Anna, and the comments are good. Is there a way that we could narrow down the items for the design review to off the bat remove those that do not apply, so we don't get into unnecessary review of things that definitely don't apply at an existing building?
So yeah, I think
I don't know the answer. I'm just thinking out loud to see if it seems to be it should be able to be a kind of a narrow review of straightforward by law items, right?
Right, I would agree with that. That'd be any other comments from the board, but there's definitely things,
But by the way, I was just gonna say that in my opinion, this project can be sent to the design review pretty quick. I don't know that there's any large objections that we would need to discuss before doing that.
I would support the design review. I wonder if there is going to be some potential changes that Josh said he was going to talk to the client about that would affect like the final. Like I think he could envision some spectacular stuff we were talking about, biking things around, and maybe even if it is some solar, I don't know. So that would be my only concern. I would support it, but I would have a concern if the applicant comes back with some really great stuff, but we didn't review that with design review because we already went through that process.
I think, I would say for one thing that the sustainability list, which should be applicable to all our projects, should also be forwarded to Mr. Klein, who can pass it on to anyone on the applicant team. And obviously the things on that list, many of them are not going to be applicable, but they can look for the ones such as a bike rack that would be applicable, on that list, such as solar, things like that. So they have that list, but that list is the sustainability list is most of those things really fall under probably the planning board purview. It's only things like landscape. Obviously, there's some comments about landscape on that sustainability list that should then cross over to the design review committee. I think other things, in design review committees review, they would be sticking to their list as per the bylaws. But that doesn't mean other things that they might have some idea about where those bike racks might go if the applicant thought that was a good idea for their project. So there still might be a little back and forth there, but it doesn't seem exclusive that it would interrupt the process. Does that sound okay, Kate, or?
Yeah, that's fine. I could see some changes that would affect obviously landscape and input, but that's fine. I think if the applicant's ready to go, and the board supports it.
I guess I'm comfortable with the applicant bringing those answers directly to the design review committee in order to help place them in the landscape.
I agree with that, and I think there's no reason to delay kind of the process of the application. Seems it's one that merits kind of do things and see what can be improved. I think sending the list that we put together for the sustainability features, that would be good. But making it clear that there are things there that the town aspires to, and they're not specific requirements unless they are in the bylaw. So just seconding what Anna said, we would like to see a proactive offer of something that makes sense for the town. But I just want to make sure it's clear that this is not a bargaining situation.
I think this we do have a history now of putting together a memo for the design review committee, and maybe these things can be expressed in that memo. Peter and I could put that together. I'm happy to circulate it to the board, or if there's just, and then obviously comments would go back to Peter, or if there's just one other person that wants to work with me on that list, we could do it that way too.
I agree, and I'll be happy to work on that if needed.
Is that acceptable to the rest of the board or anyone who wanted to jump in there?
It's absolutely a straightforward project, so very, very minimal site improvement input is all that we're looking for, if at all. So as long as we don't complicate it with a shorter list, quick and in and out would be helpful.
Agreed, right. Is that the general sense of everybody? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds
I would
reasonable.
also, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just adding, that sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, thank you. I would also say, just as something that might be helpful for the applicant in going to the design review committee is that I think it would be helpful to have just photographs of the current building. I'm sure we all have been there, but you kind of forget. It's kind of hard to picture in your mind what is changing. And that might be just good, make the conversation go easier if you can see what's there now and then just photographs and just what you're changing.
Yeah, I
would
was
help
gonna
that
say,
conversation
Trish,
be
with
easier.
the historic, don't forget it was a Blockbuster.
Oh, those are,
Oh boy, that is very
history
important.
now.
Okay, good point. I do have one question for Judge, and I didn't quite see it, didn't pay attention when you put up the site plan. There's a patio in front of one of the proposed new kind of fronts and entrances or that say Chase. Is that going to be modified or used in a different way or demolished and done over?
The patio is going to remain. We're going to redo the landscaping around it just to kind of soften it. But at this time, it's going to remain. And, it may be a program piece that the bank uses in the future. It could be part of a future tenant space. So they're going to kind of clean it up and re-landscape it, but keep it.
Will the site lighting stay the same, or are we looking to add more based on the flow?
So we are replacing the lighting. We have to meet kind of bank security standards just for safety purposes. So we are going to be doing new lighting. It's downward facing, full cutoff, shielded LED lighting. So the goal is really kind of containing it into the areas for bank customers, but it will be kind of all new lighting on site.
Thank you.
Peter, do you know if a new lighting plan is required by the design review process?
So within the plan, there is a new lighting plan submitted.
Okay, sorry, I
Yep.
didn't see that.
Yep, it's sheet C4.
Okay,
I'm looking at it, and obviously we'll take a look at it a little bit deeper into consideration.
okay. With this time, before we go any further, I will just open the discussion up for public comment, if there is any at this time. And again, I'll place a limit of 3 minutes per speaker.
So in the room, we have no public comment, and I see no public comment via the Zoom meeting.
Okay. Okay, well, that being the case, I'll just summarize that Marcelo and I will work to put together a memo with Peter to the design review committee, reflecting both the design review committee criteria as listed in the bylaws, and also, but looking at those of which ones may not be applicable to this project, and also looking for minimal intervention where things are already existing, such as landscaping. Is that, and included with that, we'll also send over the sustainability list to see when changes are made and when changes are appropriate, if that list could be taken into consideration. Does that sound like a good summary?
I would also add the tech review, which I know is obvious, but I think we should do
Yeah.
a better job like we are of containing where we stand, so.
Yes, yeah, so the tech review is a little bit obviously separate from the memo, but Peter will obviously make sure that happens and get that information back to the planning board.
Thank you. And just to look at the timeline on the calendar and to, this is, for Josh and Andy, I think, looking into 2024, which is right around the corner, the first meeting of the design review committee is earmarked, I would say, for January 4th. And so it would be January 4th that is your first opportunity to appear with the design review committee, which would have you coming back to the planning board on January 11th, if that's acceptable to you. And then furthermore, I would request that we continue and push out the date of final decision to at the minimum of January 26th.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Is Tricia and any other planning board members, is that, from a time standpoint, is that, does that sit okay with everybody?
So we would have one more meeting before a decision's due. Is that true?
There'll be 2 meetings. So we're going to meet on January 11th and then January 25th. And then coming back on the 11th, obviously in receiving input from the design review committee, then we can kind of take the pulse of where we stand at that point.
So I was going to ask that about that, Peter. So is the intent that the 11th we would have had already a memo from the design review committee to discuss at that meeting?
You know, I think on the 11th, I would assume, yes, the design review committee would have a memo coming back to us. They, at their last few meetings and, you know, speaking, you know, in my own opinion, the design review committee has been pretty good to get memos to the planning board, you know, within 48 hours of having their meetings.
Personally, I would rather kick that out just a little bit further, because otherwise it just seems like we're always moving these dates. And I agree with Marcelo and with other members of the board that this really should be fairly straightforward. But we usually also in a meeting go through criteria, you know, and we go through the approval document if that's the way we're going, and that does take some time. And sometimes there's some answers. Sometimes we're waiting for the tech review to happen and things to get back. So I feel like 2 more meetings to me is, okay, we're going to be kicking that date down the road, you know, likely again,
Okay.
versus having just a more comfortable date and,
Would-
you know, and having a little bit more breathing room here instead of always looking at that date.
Would February 9th be acceptable? That would give 3 meetings with the planning board.
And February 9th would be the day after the planning board meeting?
It'd be the Friday, the day after the first meeting in February.
I think that's a minimum for me, but it's fine. At least it gives us a little breathing room.
Okay. Is that
We can see
acceptable
where-
to the applicant?
Yes,
Okay.
that'll be fine.
It's just, it should be a straightforward project, but there's just always pieces that have to come together, and we just keep having to kick that date down the road, and it gets a little repetitive, I guess.
Yep.
So I'd
Understood.
appreciate a little
Sure.
more breathing room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I make a motion? Yes?
Please.
All right. I make a motion that we continue the 320 Pond Street site plan approval, JP Morgan Chase Bank, to the January 11th planning board meeting, subject to going to design review endorsed by the planning board, potentially for the January 4th meeting, subject to an extension of the date till February 9th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So that is continued until January 11th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right, next on our agenda is the special permit application for 400 Cedar Street. The applicant is T-Mobile Northeast. Peter, can you give us an update?
Yep. Excuse me. So since the last time this application's been in front of the board, the applicant has gone through and completed all peer review with our peer review, Haley and Ward. And so this application was supposed to appear at our last meeting. We continued because that was not completed yet. However, since our last meeting, a new plan has been submitted. Actually, 2 new revisions have been submitted. There was letters going back and forth from our peer reviewer, and it was just today that I received, that's within our packet. It's a top letter in our packet from Haley and Ward dated December 14th, that the proposed application of moving the antennas from the top of the water tower to the side is acceptable in all construction methods. Furthermore, I do want to highlight an email from Adam Braley, December 13th, and that included a letter which is dated December 13th regarding the engineering evaluation, regarding the anchor antenna installation, and that is a stamped letter from a civil engineer, and that is within everyone's packet. Furthermore, I want to identify December 12th, T-Mobile installation on Cedar Street, peer review number 2. And then additionally, November 22nd, T-Mobile installation on Cedar Street, structural peer review number 1. And so those elements are all here tonight. Furthermore, I think the planning board has received a few emails. Those have been printed out and added to the packet. And that's what's in everyone's packet. I did include a legal memorandum dated December 8th, 2022 from Lisa Mead, and that was dealt with a very similar planning board application, which was on 20 Ponderosa Road.
Peter, do you mean 2020?
It's correct, I'm sorry.
I think it was
2022.
2022.
Thank you. That was added just as some, to help any, if the planning board or any members or a question comes up regarding legal guidance. So that was added here tonight. So with that said, from a structural standpoint, the applicant has met the standards of the town of Ashland, and it has been peer reviewed, which is a typical process that we go through anytime we're mounting telecommunications equipment onto town-owned property. In this case, this is the water tank at 400 Cedar Street. So other than those updates, I would like to hand it over to the applicant, who is represented tonight by Attorney Adam Braley.
Thank you, Peter, members of the board again. Adam Braillard with Prince of Beltai. Just for the record, also on the Zoom is Garrett Conroy. Garrett is with Centerline Communications. He's the project manager for this project. Can answer any additional questions that the board may have relevant to the application. I think Peter summed it up pretty well. We've been working, T-Mobile's been, just a quick history, I think it's on the record, but just so the board and the public knows, T-Mobile's been at this location since 2002 and has modified the site 2 or 3 times since then. The latest requested modification was in January 2022, so just under 2 years ago, where it was looking to replace some of the antennas. Currently on the tank are 3 sets of 3-panel antennas on the top of the tank, so 9-panel antennas with some remote radio units and some TMAs or tower-mounted antennas for ancillary equipment. What the applicant back then in January 2022 asked the town to do was the right to just replace, I think, maybe 6 of those 9 antennas, keep the same number of antennas. The town, at that point, under the guidance of third-party consultant Haley Ward, said, you should really consider putting these antennas on the side of the tank and not on the top. The applicant was amenable to that. At the same time, the underlying agreement with the town was up for renewal, so the town issued a request for proposal for lease agreements on the tower, which T-Mobile responded to and was awarded the bid, I think in May of 2022, September 2022. Let me just back up to those dates. Yeah, T-Mobile responded to that bid in May 2023. And then T-Mobile negotiated a new lease agreement with the town for an installation of its equipment on the side of the tank, and entered into that lease agreement, I think, at the end of the summer, where it was fully executed. And then in August, early September, we filed the modification of the special permit here with the board to relocate those antennas. The installation will actually include 8 panel antennas, so not 9, so we're actually going to be reducing the number of antennas, and that's simply because of the locations that we're proposing on the tank and where the town wants T-Mobile to go. They'd like to have the full 9 array, but they're only going to get 8. The they're good, they're okay with that, and then some ancillary remote radio units. So I think that's it. The application's filed under the 2012 Federal Tax Relief Act. I just want to make sure I say that exact term correctly. It's under what we call the Spectrum Act, which is the Federal Middle Class Relief and Jobs Creation Act of 2012, and specifically under that act, Section 6409, or what we call the Spectrum Act, which is basically allows carriers to co-locate on existing facilities or base stations, provided they don't substantially change the dimensions of that facility. We clearly don't change that. We don't substantially change those dimensions. We're not increasing the height of the tank. We're actually going from, I think, 99 feet on top of the tank down to 75 feet. The height of the top of the tank is 91 feet, so we comply with that requirement. We are not going to protrude from the exterior of the tank by more than 6 feet. It's going to be more like 2 feet, similar to the other antennas that are on the side of the tank. We're not going to be doing any excavation on the outside of the site. I don't think we're doing any excavation because our equipment is all above ground with our cabling on cable trays. We are installing, T-Mobile currently has 2 equipment cabinets on site. We're going to be replacing one of those with 2 smaller ones. The eligible facilities request substantial, requires that you not go above 4 radio cabinets, so we'll be at 3. We comply with any requirements from the prior decisions with respect to any conditions that the town had, and to the extent that there were any concealment or stealthing requirements as part of those prior decisions, we comply with those. There were none, so we're conforming to the existing characteristics of the tank with respect to the antenna sizes, and we'll obviously, I'm not sure if it's in the plans, but we would agree to paint the antennas to match the color of the tank, should the town want to do that. So we certainly comply with the what we call the 6409 Spectrum Act, and I think because of that, the board would should move forward with its decision. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open it up to questions or comments from the board.
I'll go, Tricia. No, in my view, I think the only item that we had discussed that we were concerned about was the structural integrity and the analysis of the structural engineer. That having been confirmed positive, I don't think there's any other things in my mind that need to be reviewed.
Thank you. Any other members of the board?
I don't know if it's a question, but I was curious about all the emails that we got about the concern from health point of view from a lot of those citizens. That I'm just curious, is there something that we can do to make sure that we first acknowledge all those emails, but also at the same time make sure that by approving such developments, we are not really causing a long-term damage and ignoring all the emails. So I'm curious, does the public health team ever weigh in on all these topics? Is that something that could have gone their way just to make sure that we can respond to all the emails that we've been getting?
I think.
So are you asking Deepa, but you're right, a lot of the emails arrived just in the last day or so, and we haven't really had, obviously, Kate had acknowledged that they were received, but not responded to because there just hasn't been time. So are you feeling that that given the emails that were received, is there time to acknowledge that receipt and get back to the residents before moving forward? Is that your question?
More so, yes, acknowledging those emails is a different thing, but kind of responding to make sure that as a planning board, we are looking into the health concerns that folks have, and I don't know if it's something that we could have expertise team like our public health that we have weigh in on such topics. I'm not sure if that's even a.
So, I mean, this is I think I really appreciate what Deepa is saying, and where my head is at is what I like in your comment is we may have legal obligation to not consider the health issues presented to us as part of the Spectrum Act, right? On the other hand, the public seems to have grave concerns that we may not have the jurisdiction to address. Is there another entity that the public can go to essentially air out the concerns and feel confident that although the federal law requires certain kinds of activity, and by the way, it's not just federal law. I don't know how many members of the public are here with these concerns, but I'll say that just yesterday, there was a news article, at least 2 towns in Massachusetts have attempted to create a moratorium against this type of technology. And the AG's office, the state of Massachusetts, has ruled that that's not appropriate. And so there is pretty recent controversy around the issues of the health of these kinds of technologies in Massachusetts. And so we, as members of a public committee, I think need to recognize that there's controversy out there, but there's also very, very strong federal and local authority indicating that organizations such as this one cannot limit this technology. So we have to be cognizant of both. Our legal limitations, we cannot say no for health reasons, but the public's concern. So on that issue, my personal opinion is that the health concerns out there, the reason they are so delicate and controversial is because there has not been definitive research to outright say one way or the other. There's been research that is fairly all over the place, and there are some scientists who are leaning one way, and there's others who are leaning another way, and that, to me, that my personal opinion is that that appears to be why there is so much controversy in this field. And I will simply state a personal preference that I hope that there will be more significant research locally. We live in Massachusetts. It's a very intelligent, educated state. And I would urge the public to bring their concerns towards the scientific community and to really push for more research on this topic so that folks like us are not simply, our hands are not just tied. Because at this point, it appears that the research is not so significant that the federal government or the state are changing their perspective. So until they do, until the research shows definitively the concerns that the public appears to have, that's where we are. So that's my own personal opinion.
In my opinion, just to answer your question, I think obviously if it's a Board of Health matter, it can be taken up by the Board of Health. Is it a zone? Yes, we do have zoning, and zoning has been a tool to kind of instrument the placement of telecommunication towers. But I think overall, if it's a concern of the citizens, I think it touches more than just a zoning board, it touches more than just a planning board who reviews the zoning. It also touches the Board of Health, and it touches the Board of Selectmen because it's a policy issue. And so I think that's where I would stand, but I think regarding the Spectrum Act and the application, I think we have to limit ourselves to the application, our bylaws, current bylaws, not any future bylaws, and then kind of go from that point on.
I appreciate that summary. I thought it was very clear, and it kind of describes the kind of tricky place that the planning board finds itself in, that we do have federal laws and other regulations that we need to follow, that we are not we don't have an authority above those, but yet our residents have the right to show concerns about those things, and obviously we care about our residents. So it puts us in a very tricky position about perhaps dealing with some issues that just isn't in our realm of expertise, you know, and as you say, are kind of waiting for some more definitive information that we can utilize as well in doing our job. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that analysis. I want to see if there's anyone else on the planning board who would like to speak, and then I wanted to open it up for public comment. Anyone else from the planning board? Okay, then we will, I will open it up for public comment. Again, 3 minutes per resident. I see a limited amount of people online here. Peter, maybe you can manage whoever's in the room.
Sure. No, I'll manage everyone in the room, and I have my timer. So we have currently one person at the podium, Ms. Cece Doucette.
Thank you, Peter. And if I may, there are a number of residents who wanted to be here tonight and couldn't, and asked that I speak on their behalf as well. I have prepared an 8-minute statement that I hope you'll allow me to present to you.
How does the planning board feel about that? I'm looking
I think
for
that's
input.
fine.
I'm supportive. I appreciate that fellow board members are supportive of hearing from the public. Given our difficult legal situation, we at least need to hear.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very
I will
much.
allow, Cece,
Sorry.
I will allow that, but we will be keeping to that timeline of 8 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Trish.
You're welcome.
My name is Cecilia Doucette. I'm an Ashland resident and the director of Massachusetts for Safe Technology and the international nonprofit Wireless Education. Thanks to each of you for giving your time to our town. Please do not approve modification for the T-Mobile special permit that was granted in 2002 until you consult with an expert attorney who writes protective zoning bylaws for municipalities. Much has happened in the 21 years since that permit was first granted. Today, we know far more about wireless technology risks and the laws that govern them than we did when your predecessors unwittingly approved special permit that allowed cell towers in residential areas. Today, we know there are several public safety risks over which you do have control. Public safety risk number 1. Cell towers and related equipment have been the cause of major fires from coast to coast. You may remember the Spencer Church fire that burned to the ground recently. It had cell antennas in the steeple that served as a lightning rod. It is important to know that a cell tower fire cannot be immediately extinguished by firefighters. With an electrical fire, the power company has to first kill the power to prevent the firefighters from becoming electrocuted. This process can take up to an hour, in which time, especially if it's a windy day, the entire neighborhood can burn down. The Cedar Street cell tower has homes very close by in all directions. Fire risk can leave hundreds of Ashland residents vulnerable when we allow cell towers in at close range. Public risk number 2 is legal liability. Did you know that Lloyd's of London, Swiss Re, AM Best, and other major insurers have long since recognized radio frequency radiation as a world-leading risk on par with asbestos and do not provide insurance coverage? They have put exclusions in their policies which can leave Ashland assuming liability if our zoning code is not protective. Public safety risk number 3 is energy consumption. Did you know that wireless technology consumes 10 times more energy than hardwired connections, and that the IEEE forecasts 5G will use 3 to 4 times more energy than 4G? Wireless technology is a leading contributor to climate change. Public safety risk number 6 is there has been no safety testing. Wireless industry representatives admitted to U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal at a Congress committee hearing that they have not funded any independent research to prove 5G is safe before coming to market. In a 4-minute clip I will send to you, Senator Blumenthal correctly states, so as far as safety is concerned, we are flying blind here. Studies show that close-range cell towers decrease property values and in turn our town's tax revenue. Ashland deserves better, and there are many fine examples to follow. A good attorney in Wayland helped years ago to establish zoning setbacks that recently allowed the town to legally reject a cell tower application at the Wayland Rod and Gun Club, which abuts a neighborhood. We know the industry routinely threatens to sue uninformed towns if they reject an application. The tide is now turning. Last year, Pittsfield, Massachusetts residents opened a lawsuit against the city after a cell tower made 17 children and adults so sick that they had to abandon their homes. The Massachusetts Association of Health Boards sent an amicus brief to the court in support of the citizens, and we are awaiting the judge's ruling on that. Last month, public servants in Stamford, Connecticut, through the initiative of their state representative, took the time to become informed on wireless risks and rejected a plan the industry had crafted with the governor to place 5G small cells inside neighborhoods. Stamford even said the threat of a lawsuit is not reason enough to put citizens in harm's way. Just last week, the Burlington Mass Planning Board voted 7-0 to reject an industry-influenced zoning law update. They voted to instead hire a consultant who specializes in telecom law and can skillfully represent the town's best interest, not the industry's. Just yesterday, Children's Health Defense filed a groundbreaking lawsuit for ADA protections for a man injured by cell tower radiation. Just like with big tobacco, the tide is now turning on big wireless. 5G is a bad choice for our communities and our planet. The industry pushes more product, which then requires more capacity, which then requires more hazardous cell towers. 5G uses existing 3G and 4G longer wavelengths to carry signal and data, plus 5G adds another untested layer of radio frequency radiation using short millimeter waves that quickly degrade in bad weather. Industry's solution is to fill our neighborhoods with millions of cell antennas right outside our bedrooms so their signals can get through to the devices they've convinced you need. The responsible solution for Ashland and every community is fiber optics to and through the premises. Once we are wired, we do not need close-range cell towers, and we can meet industry's capacity needs with existing equipment responsibly placed away from sensitive areas like homes, schools, medical facilities, senior centers, and recreational areas. The industry, however, is prone to taking the path of least resistance. They target locations where they don't have to pay to run electrical lines or to pave roads to the tower. Hence, the cell antennas installed dangerously close in residential areas. The New Hampshire legislature has already investigated 5G risks and issued this groundbreaking report recommending science-based setbacks at a minimum of 500 meters or 1,640 feet, transitioning away from unsafe wireless connections for primary connectivity and investing in fiber to and through the premises. Other communities are already doing this around the world. And Anna, to answer your question, the FCC has now been sued for ignoring 11,000 pages of scientific evidence of harm. We do not need more science. We need public policy to catch up. My ask of you today is threefold. First, pause T-Mobile's modification request for the 2002 special permit and engage the services of attorney Andrew Campanelli. Mr. Campanelli worked for industry for years until he realized the harm they are inflicting. And now he represents municipalities. He's one of the nation's leading experts in telecom law, and he can advise us on our legal options with this T-Mobile application. Second, for the short fee of $8,500, Mr. Campanelli can review our existing zoning bylaws and recommend rewrites to help Ashland retain local control to the fullest extent allowable under current state and federal law. Third, I would like to partner with the Planning Board, the Select Board, and the Board of Health to provide town-sponsored educational forums on wireless risks and safer technology solutions. I've done so with the Hanscom Area Town Select Board, as well as with Tri-Town Health in the Berkshires. Citizens and municipality leaders are grateful to learn the facts and safer ways to still access today's technology, but without these very dangerous risks, and to codify it in their zoning bylaws. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Peter, are there any other residents in the room that were looking for an opportunity to speak?
Of course. No, there's somebody coming to the podium.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Woden, and I co-administer Sustainable Upton, an environmentally oriented group of Upton with 373 members. We've been working with our planning board to update our wireless bylaw that was written in 2012 during the age of large cell towers with long, slow waves a mile away from people's homes. In May of last year, at our town meeting, we weren't able to get the 2/3 needed to pass that new bylaw, but we had a commanding majority of citizens vote with us to show their concern. Now we are working closely with our planning board to finalize a better bylaw we hope to pass this May. We are told that 5G, instead of the long, slow waves from a mile away, we are told that it needs to be on light utility and telephone poles every 200 to 500 feet right outside our homes, our schools, playgrounds, daycare centers, and senior housing. There's been no safety testing of this close infrastructure or the effect of the satellites that surround the world, the Earth, and pulse microwave radiation down to these cell antennas. We don't know its effect on children, adults, pets, or wildlife. The WHO classifies EMFs, radio frequency radiation, in the same category as lead and DDT. Because of this, we are basing our bylaw on one written by a telecom litigation attorney, the same one that Cece just spoke about, and hope to work with him to have an effective bylaw that protects aesthetics, which is allowed in the FCC law, property values, and safety, which are also allowed. The bylaw we are using as our basis has already been accepted, approved, and is in use. Many public servants were skeptical of the need for this at first, but now they see our citizens' concerns, and they have concerns themselves. Our Board of Health did not feel there was enough information for them to rule that they felt that wireless technology was safe, and they have submitted that to our planning board, so they have that information as well. In addition, as we have heard, it is a climate killer, and I heard you have a zero policy for climate in this town, which is wonderful, but the small cell antennas that are going to go on all the telephone poles right outside of homes all emit energy, and they're combustible as well, and they would not fit, I don't think, within those guidelines. So I feel that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak about this, and I'm glad to hear that the tide is turning. I'm aware of those cases out in Western Mass. A moratorium is not okay, but a strong bylaw is a very good, effective tool, and I hope you'll consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to the podium, Mr. Mark Tassoni. Mr. Mark Tassoni, please introduce yourself with your name and address.
Okay, Mark Tassoni, 49 Hawthorne Road, Ashland, Mass. I'm thinking the board to let Cece go full length with her readings there. I'm looking at this as through the emails that came in. Did the emails come in during business hours? Yes or no?
Yes, they did, Mark.
Was there any Board of Health officials in the office at the time?
You put me on the spot, Mark, but yeah, the Board of Health manager, Mr. Raj Gupta was probably in the office, yes.
Probably in the office, or not sure he was.
We both have very busy schedules, Mark, so to say he was in his seat, I can't confirm nor deny, but,
Now, the reason why I'm saying that, because the people wouldn't trouble themselves to send emails if they didn't want a response from the Board of Health Department. So I'm coming to it, they're saying, was there a Board of Health personnel that saw those emails before this meeting tonight?
no.
And you said they probably was here in the office, in their department, but they didn't see the emails. Why?
Well, Mark, number one, they were not addressed to the Board of Health. They were sent to the planning board, to the Ashland Planning Board account.
But it had Board of Health issues. It had health issues.
So Mark, to your point, and this was going to be my comment as a planning board member to the planning board, I think for me, as I'm listening to the public input, including your questions, what it boils down for me is the federal and state law, in light of our current bylaw, truly limits what this planning board can do. However, if there is citizen concern, just like in Upton, that specific information needs to come to the Board of Health. Citizens should and could do that. In addition, if citizens want to propose a bylaw, a town meeting in Ashland, or involve the planning board or request planning board involvement for a bylaw that, for example, narrows in certain setbacks, not a moratorium, but setbacks related to schools, for example. I have not seen such a proposal yet, right? So until those things happen, there's not a lot that this planning can do with our current bylaw and federal and state regulations.
And for the setbacks, some years ago, including the Ponderosa and the one up on Cedar Extension, the water tower, there was the setbacks, talked about that, and this is going to be not going to change because the property itself is not going to be differently set back. It's going to stay where it is. So the frequency, the radio combined ohms and everything, the technical side of things, is going to be an issue that the board may hear from citizens again, but I'm sure that the citizens who did these emails would like to get an answer from the Board of Health themselves. Maybe the Board of Health can come in as an agenda item to come in to talk about this the next time it comes in and get their opinions so those emails can be answered properly. Thank you.
And I just want to clarify that when I brought this topic up, I think I understand that it's definitely under not our purview to kind of make that call, but I'm just surprised that all those emails came to the planning board instead of Board of Health, which would have been the right way to come to kind of a solution for that, those questions, instead of coming to the planning board. So I think that's where I was wondering why the Board of Health was not involved in these emails versus the planning board, where we definitely, like Anna very nicely put it, it's not in our jurisdiction to even look at those concerns, unfortunately.
I think as well, many of the concerns that were mentioned and talking about revision of bylaws, and also some, I'm familiar with many of the news articles that Ms. Doucette mentioned, and many of them involved locations of new cell towers, which is not what we're doing here. Our bylaws maybe they do need an updating. It's for new cell towers. This is about a specific federal law about replacement of existing, things that are already on existing towers, and that's what this application falls under. Maybe our bylaws, as far as other things, maybe they could use a closer look and updating. I'm certainly not opposed to that, nor is it an area of my expertise. But the problem at hand is a lot narrower, I think than that. Kate, did you want to weigh in, or Amanda, on this?
Well, I think, I appreciate, and I think it's clear the board does appreciate public comments. And I think it speaks to me of maybe we have to do a better job of like publicizing when there are limits on things. So it's probably frustrating. We're having a public hearing, and I think we've proven we're very much willing to hear, and we did not ignore them. People took those to heart. We're in a position that we cannot do what's being asked except looking at the bylaw for the future. So I think there is some onus on the board to maybe try to maybe even put some of those things on our website about when we're publishing a hearing on a specific thing, so people have easy access to that. I'd like to see that, I guess.
And Tricia, I think I agree with everything Anna said and you said. I think this explanation is a very compelling subject to consider. But I think we are in the third hearing on this antenna replacement, and I think it's very difficult to come at this meeting and say, please don't approve this based on that long-term potential plan for doing things differently. I think we are responsible for dealing with this application under the laws. And unless those laws change, I don't know that we want to basically submit the town to a lawsuit of something that's covered under federal law. So it's a kind of a difficult position, and changing the bylaws and investigating more. I think not many people will be against that, but it is. I just don't see the immediate application to this case, and I don't think that there's that we have the authority to simply say, oh no, we're just not going to approve it for that reason.
Yeah, agreed. I think to Kate's point, the understanding around, and I think this goes to Deepa's original question, the understanding around what we have purview and jurisdiction over in regards to this application, the two prior hearings, and sort of where those queries were directed as they came in today. This goes back to Mr. Jasoni's question, where those came in during business hours to the planning board, not to the Board of Health, likely because we had this hearing. But these issues are outside of our purview in the scope of this specific application. And so I also just wanted to thank everyone for the public comment, but agree absolutely with Kate and Marcelo and the other board members.
Peter, it looks like someone else is at the mic.
Yeah, we have one person up at the microphone waiting for public comment, so I'm going to introduce, we're going to have two people. So I'm just going to turn it over to whoever's at the microphone. So please introduce your name and address, and you can state your statement.
I'm Jay Mackin. I'm at 386 Cedar Street, so you can figure out that I'm pretty close to 400. I've been before this board numerous times over the last 20-something years. I bought my house in '94. I will say this, when I did my research and figured out that the Nyanza thing was under control and I decided to move to Ashland, the last thing I anticipated was that this board, not necessarily you, would continue to make decisions that would drive my property value down. Well, that ship sailed, because it already has. That being said, in light of all kinds of new evidence, you're continuing to listen to Big Cellular, who's working on radiation regulations from 1996, if I'm correct. That's a long time ago. I plead with you, stop this. Enough's enough. And the FCC is under a lawsuit. It's only a matter of time before they start going local. And the town and particular board members even could be at risk of having put citizens at risk. Stop it. Put an end to it. And in fact, don't grant their request. Shut them all down. Thank you.
Grisha, one comment. Oh, I'm sorry, somebody's going to
Please.
speak.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you. Yes?
Oh, no, it was not about your comment. In general, it just but I don't want to cut off the other person that wants to speak. I was just going to say, but with all these public concern, which is very important to listen to, these lease renewal is a lease that the town is put out for public RFP. So the town is charging a lease for these locations. So it seems to me that this effort, it's again, I feel it's very difficult for the planning board to basically ignore all the regulations. But it would be very easy if the town as a whole did not want these antennas. The town can let the lease simply expire and not renew it. That would be a simpler way, but that would be the right way to approach it, seems to me.
The only thing that I can say, and I've heard this been pushed over to a Board of Health issue and not this planning board, I've never gotten a notification from the Board of Health to come here and speak about this issue. I've only gotten it from this board, and that goes back over 20 years. So if you don't have the ability to make a decision on this, which maybe you don't, then why pretend that you do?
I think it's important to understand, and I know it's difficult to understand, and a number of people who have been saying this, is that the planning board is put in a very particular, very difficult position here, that we're required to go through this process, though we have no control over the other aspects of things. And we are legally obligated under federal law to approve these kind of modifications. We don't put out the RFPs, we don't evaluate health. None of that is in our purview. Only this little piece. We're required by law to send out, when things come like this for these kind of updates, we're required by law to notify everyone within 300 feet. So that is what we do. But our power here, when someone says, stop it, stop this from happening, it's not within our power to do that. We don't have that jurisdiction. That power is not given to us. So it puts us in a very difficult position.
Whose power is it in when I get notifications to come to these? Okay, well, the FCC is being sued. It's coming. Think about that. It's coming.
Peter? Was there
Yes, so we have one more person up that would like to make a public comment. So please step forward to the microphone and introduce yourself with your name and address.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I live at 173 Leland Farm Road. So I am in the Ledgmere condos as well. And from what I could tell from seeing a map, I am in the footprint of this technology, and I do have my own concerns that are pretty much my own research and experience. I want to make it brief, and that's I am very much concerned about anyone just being willing to wash their hands of this before actually being able to be consulted by people who have been doing the work, that have the information that you need. I think it's a great idea if you're worried about legal, and I keep hearing the legal, the time. Where do we stand? Where's our voice going to land? Who is going to help us? Because if we have concerns and you can address them, I think I just met these ladies and I didn't know about them, but they have an obvious logical solution, and that would be to get some legal consultation that would represent the residents, as well as help you be more informed about where you stand legally. Because I would hate to think that after I've invested all of my time and effort to be a resident of this town, that I have no voice, that people who have been here for 2 times longer than I've lived here have no voice. And I think that's really what you're trying to sort out, is how much can you do for us? Well, I think just taking the time to think that over and get some legal consultant that knows how to answer your questions and how to direct that and tell you what you can do. It would be so much better for me as a resident to know that you're making those efforts and not just wash your hands of it.
So just so you're aware, we do have a legal consultant. We have town council who offered an opinion.
Okay, I'm just going to let
And so, and just to kind of clarify, the legal consultant that has been suggested through public comment is someone who works very closely with municipalities to create bylaw changes. And that's not what's up for consideration tonight, right? And so there isn't, that I'm aware of, there isn't a way to consult your way out of a federal regulation that it sounds like a lot of people in this room disagree with, right? So for me, it's really, really straightforward. We have a federal law and we have state jurisdiction, very clean in Massachusetts right now as to what this board can do. We also have a democracy. We have a town meeting model in this community, and we appear to have very strong, passionate residents in this room who believe a bylaw should be proposed. And that is the proper course of action. And you don't need a legal opinion for that. You can read our bylaws. There's a town meeting model, and any citizen concern can be brought through a citizen petition to a town meeting for a bylaw change with any expert that you wish to hire. You don't need the planning board to tell you that. That is democracy in this town, period. So if you disagree with our jurisdiction and you want to change the laws, you can do that through town meeting.
I believe that is pushing it down the road when, if other towns are able to.
But that's what other towns are doing. That's direct democracy. That's the beauty of America. That's why I moved to this country, right?
However, I feel that there's no consideration of what you can do, even though the federal law says something. There's something else that should be able to represent local municipalities, right?
So our job is to follow the law, which is the bylaw, the regulation, and federal law. You're saying we need you to go against it. This board is essentially sharing with you an agreement with our town council that right now the law in this jurisdiction does not allow us to rule against it. However, it's a direct democracy. There is a town meeting model, and other towns like Upton have chosen to go to town meeting and create bylaws that are narrow and create setbacks, et cetera, and they're hoping that that will fly. And I wish them luck, and I hope it does for them, because I would support that bylaw if I saw that. But that is not what I'm being asked today to rule on. I'm not being asked to create a bylaw. If we want to have a bylaw conversation, my opinion will be, I'll support a bylaw that is limited in scope and creates setbacks. But that's not what we're discussing today.
I really thought that the zoning thing could be addressed. That's what I was hoping.
I have not seen that on our agenda. That is not open meeting. We're not discussing a zoning bylaw. We're discussing an applicant in front of us based on our current bylaw, the current federal regulation, and the current state regulation that's being discussed by the AG's office with other communities. This is the reality on the ground. If there is direct democracy interest in changing that, your proper mechanism would be town meeting through a bylaw and an attempt, just like Upton, to go a different route.
So in other words, we have to pay our way to get anything done.
This is the beauty of democracy. That it's not about payment. It's about acting through voting and through direct democracy, which is town meeting, to change laws that you disagree with.
I just don't see a willingness here. I'm going to just make that comment.
If I could just clarify, when I presented to the planning board, it was probably most of you were not on the planning board at the time, but Lisa Mead was there, and I asked her if she is an expert in telecom law, and she indicated she is not an expert in telecom law. So with this T-Mobile special permit, we are asking that you speak to an expert, because the industry leads us to believe that our hands are tied, but they're not. One little finger might be tied, but there are many things that we can often do that our towns simply do not know about. So please, give Andrew Campanelli a call. He'll do a free consultation on the phone with you and tell you what he thinks. But do not just go by what you think you've been told by industry or what you've been advised by an attorney who does not specialize in telecom law. So at least do us the courtesy of speaking to Andrew Campanelli. And if he says, yeah, the way it is right now, you're screwed, T-Mobile is allowed to put that toxic cell antenna up. They're allowed to add new technology to that cell tower. They are not just replacing antennas. They're putting in new technology that we should have local control over, not industry. With all due respect to our friend from industry here. T-Mobile's parent company in Germany in the year 2000 commissioned a study on telecommunications equipment and health, and they found cancers, DNA damage, infertility, headaches, nosebleed, nausea, dizziness, anxiety, depression, and so much more, and they buried the report. I have a copy of that report that I will include for you and for the Board of Health. Please don't just kick this down the road. Use your voice and get the federal laws changed. Right now, the telecom industry has dozens of bills that they are working on at the federal level to completely strip every one of our towns of local control. That is something you could actively do, is stand up as a town and say, do not pass these bills. Reach out to Jim McGovern. Lori and I have already met with Jim McGovern. He said, gee, that cell phone pulses microwave radiation that dysregulates the pineal gland in the brain that releases melatonin. Maybe that's why I don't sleep anymore. So let's do what we can from where we are. Let's use our voice and not just roll over and say that's the law. Let's change the law. That is what democracy is meant to be.
Yeah,
Thank
I think,
you.
and I think that's actually, and this is just a general comment, I think actually that is what Anna is saying. And it may not be, I don't feel, we feel that we are listening to the residents. We're trying to hear you, what you have to say. I'm wondering if you're, if you're hearing what Anna was saying, and in what the board is saying, that that we actually could be interested in these bylaw changes, in further steps, in a better understanding, but it's looking at it in the issue at hand is not that issue.
No, I understand that, Ms. Kendall.
Please, I didn't interrupt you, right? I'm trying to get to a point that what we have in front of us today is extremely limited, and the proposal, the questions you're asking, and the possible paths are broad, and ones that we can look further into. But those two they're related, obviously, but they may be two very different things. Town council obviously is not, Lisa Mead is very well not an expert in telecommunications, but she is an expert in municipal law. And that is what we are. We're part of the municipal system. And so she's advising Ashland. Her job is to advise Ashland in areas of municipal law. So that is the situation we are in.
And I, not to kind of continue to argue with the public, but I'll also add that there's two planning board members, myself and an associate member, who are attorneys. And, you know, I don't throw that around because, frankly, usually that's not a good thing. But I can tell you I'm trained to read regulations and laws, and this issue is very important to me outside of this particular hearing. And I have friends who've been impacted by wireless technology, who've been involved in some of the issues that you discuss. So I am personally very familiar with your concerns, and I am very familiar with the telecom issues, and I could not find enough legal basis for me to comfortably rule against this application. And so this idea that we need to speak to a telecom council who may have a different view, I appreciate that opinion, but I think his expertise lies in bylaws, not in somehow overruling federal law. And so, with all due respect, I think that we are very much hearing you, and we may even be personally in agreement with you. And we may even support the bylaw that you might propose if it's narrow, right? Because a moratorium is not going to fly. But a narrow bylaw that deals with setbacks may in fact be workable for Ashland. And I would personally support that if you brought that here, right? But for you to tell us that we need an expert to overrule federal law, I respectfully disagree with that.
Well, I'm not saying to overrule federal law. I'm asking that you check in with somebody who does this day in and day out and ask his opinion on what T-Mobile has proposed. I don't think that is an outlandish request. I think that you do not have expertise in telecom law. Lisa Mead does not have expertise in telecom law. The industry tells us what they want us to hear, and we have not checked in with an expert in telecom law. That's what I'm asking for the 2002 special permit condition that they're asking for. He's a nice guy. Give him a call.
I'm sure he is.
I will just say that
go ahead, Anna.
when I went to law school, one of the first things you learn very quickly is that the right answer to any legal question is it depends, right? And so this idea that, ooh, there's this expert I can talk to, I can tell you in telecom law, like any law, there's going to be the right attorney will say whatever it is that you need them to say, and a good lawyer will find a way to make an argument that you wish them to make. And so just like there's experts at the firm who support our applicant, there's going to be experts who are going to try to find a different way to interpret it. What I'm telling you is my job as a planning board member is to review the arguments and to become comfortable with my position. And what I'm telling you is I would not feel comfortable denying this application based on the laws in front of me right now.
Okay. And I can respect that.
I don't need an expert to tell me otherwise, because I've already thought it through. And you can find an expert on either side of this issue, is including the science, which is why this is so complicated.
And I get that. But he will tell towns, no, you don't stand a chance. Bottom line, if there's nothing legal that can be done, he will tell you that. But he knows the law better than almost anybody in this country. And he doesn't just do municipal zoning bylaws. He goes through the courts, and he wins cases if we can stop it oftentimes before the antennas go up.
So that sounds like something that you may want to bring up to the select board, who would have the policy jurisdiction to discuss that with you. It sounds like you're pushing the town to be willing to kind of handle it legally, and that is not something that we as a planning board have jurisdiction over. But I appreciate your opinion. I think you've had a very strong public comment, and unless there's other public comment, I would say that it's time to move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so,
Tricia.
Peter,
Yeah.
is there anyone else in line?
Yeah, Mark Tassoni just stepped up to the microphone.
Mark, I will give you one more chance to speak, and I will take no other speakers in line. Okay, Mark.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we talking about this applicant at this moment, at this time. What would happen if another applicant with the same agenda item comes before the board? Will any of this that came up tonight be included in the discussion?
Do you want me to answer that?
Mark, sometimes I feel like I forget things very easily as I'm getting older, but I assure you that if the exact same issue came before us, this board is quite passionate about trying to be consistent, and we've been learning a lot as we go, and I think you've been here to so many of our meetings where we are always aiming to be better, learn from our experience, and I'm sure we would discuss some of the similar issues and probably learn as we go.
So learn as you go, yes. The two-way street, the middle of the power up, compromise, talk it through from a big power up to a understanding that everybody's happy with. This, tonight, everybody was in a big power up, and there was a compromise, but not a true understanding because the issues and laws and stuff like that got in the way, and people wanted to be heard either way, one way or the other, and the advocate wants to be heard one way or the other. So we got to kind of down the road, not kicking it down the road or anything like that, but have the understanding of next time something like this comes up, all this was tonight, including any emails, the Board of Health should get an assist in the preparing for when it comes up again.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. All right, so back to the board. We have we have two options, I think, in front of us. We have a draft document, which is a bit old now. Maybe I think Peter has gone through it and changed appropriate dates and document lists. The document is otherwise fairly straightforward and simple. We can go through that document tonight. We can take a vote on this tonight, or we can potentially postpone this until the 11th and ask Attorney Mead to come in person, respond to any of our questions. Can I get are people looking one way or another? I think those are our two options. We continue to our next meeting, or we go through the approval document and take a vote tonight.
I mean, I'll just say I reviewed the proposed decision. I think that it may have been drafted prior to the passionate public comments and emails that we've received, and it also does not reference town council opinion as far as I can tell. And so as long as it's amended to adequately recognize the extensive public comment, including town council opinion, I would be comfortable with this document.
And I can just add that since we printed everything, obviously, I've added all the documents that came in from Haley and Ward, and we've kind of moved past that. And that's where it kind of stands. So obviously, just to give some color to the draft.
Peter, I have a question for you. This is not the first of these permits that we processed. We processed one thing less than a year ago or so.
Yeah, we processed four a year ago at 24 Albert Ray Drive.
Yeah. And wasn't there another one before that one?
Yep, it was at actually this site at 369, Cedar Street. And then we processed one again at 20 Ponderosa prior to that.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, I remember, I mean, these.
1 minute, Marcelo. Can you just repeat that? We're having some technical issues in the room.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just gonna say, and I remember in one of those applications, which was, I think, as narrow as this one, there were opinions specifically from Lisa Mead that were included on that discussion in that decision, if I'm not wrong. Unless the conditions change, I don't think this board can change the direction of the decision. But those decisions, and I'm fine, by the way, if we want to postpone the vote, if we can, and include at least come and speak or whoever. But I think that it, unless it's going to, I want to avoid that a circular conversation, because all these elements have been discussed. This is not the first time. It's the first time that the public has come, which is great. And moving forward, there's probably a lot of work to do. And the town, and I agree, by the way, the select board probably needs to hear this, because if the town as a whole wants to avoid this in the future, it can very easily not renew new leases, right? But if the language that we heard from Lisa is already at hand, we can just include it in this decision, I think.
Yeah, so I'm happy to include the email that was dated from 2020 that was circulated to the board. And I'm actually have the decision up, Marcelo, so I'm not sure it was not in any decision regarding Albert Ray Drive. But I'm happy to add it if the board is requesting that, and/or to get new from Lisa if the board requests that as well.
I mean, I would say Lisa's opinion is part of my consideration, so I think we should include it
Okay.
so that it's obvious what we were relying upon as part of our decision.
Okay.
You're talking about her document from 2020.
Correct.
Okay.
Because I think it was included in our packets. We've referenced it several times tonight. I think it's an important document.
Well, why don't we then review this document and then see, as we review it, make any changes that people had or updates. And then after our review, we will see with the document in front of us if we feel ready to take a vote this evening. So does everyone have the document both at home and ones that were in the binders, but people aren't there? And Peter, do you have the document up for potential?
No, I do not. I gotta do that.
I think it was emailed as well.
Yeah.
Peter, can I ask a question about paragraph 6 on page 4 that talks about, in accordance with 938 of the zoning bylaw, the special permit shall lapse after 2 years from granting? What does that mean? Does that mean this is up for reevaluation 2 years from
So
now?
that means that the applicant, that's typical excuse me. So that is boilerplate language. That's typically in our decisions. And so what that states is that, so this is a modification of a special permit. However, when you grant a special permit, typically you have 2 years to act on that special permit. So number one, a special permit is not valid till you, number one, record it at the registry of deeds. And then number two, you have to act on that special permit within 2 years of the
Gotcha.
issuance.
Okay.
And actually that law has changed in the state. And so that is now 3 years. And so
Okay.
that's just a little bit of a bookkeeping item that I was on a webinar today.
Okay.
And that kind of
So we
came up as
probably
a
wanna
process.
change that.
So we could say 30 years, to tell you the truth. And that would mirror new changes to Mass General law, but that's just the process of special permits within Massachusetts.
But Tricia, were you suggesting that we read, I mean, I have the document here, that we read that openly once more?
I was suggesting that we had already received it to review, but like meeting minutes, I assume people have some potential changes or questions, so that we go through it kind of in the way that we do meeting minutes or any approval document.
Oh, okay, I was referring to the email from Lisa on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020.
Oh, no, we can go through it, if anyone wants to or feels that it was unclear.
No, it's just that the public has not probably seen it, right? And
okay.
I think it backs up exactly Anna's explanation of the situation for us.
That's fair. Why don't, Peter, can you bring up Lisa's letter?
Oh, sure.
And we can kind of, it's not very long, but we can kind of read through it or offer it to the public who doesn't have a view on it right now.
I also think that needs to get on the website with this application, but maybe just in general as well, but.
I can
That
do
it
that.
is on the website, is that what you said?
I don't think so.
No,
because
this
it
was
just
not
got in
been
our
added.
packet, Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do so. And just to add some color, oh, sorry, Tricia.
I was just going to say, just to make it clear that I think I know maybe Deepa and I was on the board during 2020, and I remember this document from before. I can't remember exactly the context, but when I reread it, it was familiar to me. And I would have been on the board at that time. I can't remember, Deepa, if you were also on the board at that time and if this seemed familiar to you. Obviously at a similar, it must have been a similar application.
This is a similar application, and this was for 20 Ponderosa Road. And this is just to add color to everybody on the meeting and in the room, 20 Ponderosa Road is the home of our DPW. And there's a land lease that Crown Castle has. And so Crown Castle leases land and has erected through permits a tower, a monopole tower. And I believe there are 4 telecom companies that have antennas on that tower. And so back in 2020, one of the telecom companies, and I forget which one, was looking to take down old antennas and put up new antennas. So very similar to the process that we're talking about here. It was a modification to existing special permit.
Tricia, I remember that meeting, and I also remember Cece's presentation during that meeting. So
that was at the same time. Yeah, I couldn't quite recall the order of events.
Yep.
Would it be helpful? I mean, we're kind of showing it up there. Would it be helpful if I read part of the text?
I think the 3rd and 4th paragraphs are what's the meat of the message.
So the one beginning, while I am sure.
Yeah.
So it says, while I am sure it is confusing for the board to be reviewing this item under a special permit, which provides discretion to the board, typically they are doing so in light of the overlay of federal regulations on the local bylaw. Please know the Federal Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, the Act, is very clear that while a local permitting agency may not deny and shall approve any eligible facilities request for a modification of an existing wireless tower or base station that does not substantially change the physical dimensions of such tower or base stations. The sole focus on a modification is on dimensions and no other extraneous potential consideration such as health. In fact, preceding the act, the FCC was very clear that it prohibited local permitting agencies to deny permits for applications for cell towers based on the environmental and health effects. This FCC order was upheld in the case of Cellular Phone Task Force versus Federal Communications, a lot of numbers, in 2000. Factors or alleged factors such as the environment and health impacts are not to be considered as a basis to deny a permit. Of course, with the act, the factors are very clear for modifications. The health and environment are not included in those factors. And this is the position the planning board is put into. This is the law we must follow. So this is a document then that we can enter into the agreement or the approval document as part of the text on which our decision is based.
Yes, that was my suggestion, that we include the reference to her letter.
I agree with Anna.
Yeah, same.
I don't know that we have to do this, but I did bring it before. So there's a lease related to this, and the reason I would bring it into here in case there's conflicts, I don't remember all the lease language, or maybe we have to be silent, but I just want to bring that up.
In other words, our decision is not contingent upon, but congruent with the lease.
Yeah, so I don't know if we need to be silent or if we should cite it, but we should talk about that, I think. And then, I mean, there's particular things that I don't want lost, like for the town. if, like the removal for painting antennas, which I think might be in the lease, but I don't remember. And the applicant offered if we wanted them painted. I don't want to talk about paint colors here, but like we should say that could be a condition that they shall if they work with the town. So there's some conditions that have to be discussed.
So essentially,
in my
our
opinion.
condition would be that they would follow the lease agreement and that they would
Yes,
work
but-
with the town.
But I'm not sure it talks about painting in the lease agreement.
So adding that they would cooperate with the town relative to painting? Is that a condition, Peter, that we could include? Is the applicant willing to include that condition?
Yes.
Well, I think the town leased this through an open public RFP that was won and awarded. I don't think we can suggest that somebody can change those things without knowing. I mean, that's not our area of influence.
Oh, sorry. May I?
Yeah.
There is a reference to tank maintenance in the lease that does reference or require the applicant to work with the town in the event that the town would want to paint the tank.
In that case, I don't think we need to mention it in the decision if it's in the lease.
Yes.
Or you just want to reinforce it?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like without, that should be a nice little package together, but I do not know legally.
I don't see an issue why we cannot just say that the applicant shall work with the town and follow the lease agreement as provided.
As written or whatever.
As written.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see any issues with
That's
that,
fine.
and I think that could be a minor edit to the application, to the decision.
Does that satisfy your concerns?
Yeah, I
Kate?
think so. And
Okay.
then there's some pickier things if we're going back.
Yeah, go for it.
It's actually almost January 2024, the date at the top.
Oh, geez, Lou, yeah. You're getting into the nitty pit, yeah.
Well,
I'm just joking.
we can't have it not correct, so.
Yeah. No, I was just,
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we start at the top? And I had that circled too, that the date was wrong.
I think that's also for when hearing closes, also on page 1.
Yeah, go slow, Peter, so we can go through it. Amanda, are you seeing your correction on that screen? Where you need it?
See it? It's paragraph 3, so it would be December.
The sentence above, though, it also continued to December 14th. So the very first sentence of that paragraph you're in.
yeah.
I think and then just before you go further, I think in the very first paragraph, it's just a very minor correction.
Yep. Jeez, what is going on?
You were having some issues there, Peter.
Okay.
Okay. If you go up to that very first paragraph, you can't see the whole thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where you see where Adam's name is underlined, 2 lines down from that is the word removal, and it has a comma after it. You should take out that comma because it reads kind of strange. So to modify the existing special permit for the removal and replacement of antennas, unless that's meaning something that I don't understand.
Nope.
Okay, that's it. All right, so move slowly down if anyone has any other corrections?
The second paragraph, 300 feet has both FT and feet indicated in the second paragraph, the last line of it.
Okay, here under documents of record, under the second bullet point, it kind of just ends in an application for special permit modification in the alternative. Was there something after that, or is it just supposed to have a period? I didn't understand that.
Which bullet is that, Tricia?
The second bullet point down, it's right where the cursor is. It says, and an application for special permit modification in the alternative. Is that the end? Should there be a period there, or was there more text? I'm not sure what in the alternative means.
I would have to go back and look at the original application, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that language comes from the cover page, which says eligible facilities requests pursuant to section 6409 of the Spectrum Act and an application for special permit modification in the alternative.
So there should be a period there. Is the
Right.
comma, should the comma be taken out? Or just, it's fine the way it is there?
I think that's exactly how we had it in the letter, so.
If I took it from the letter, I took it from the letter.
That's fine. I wasn't sure what, the meaning was unclear to me. It looked like maybe something was missing. Thank you for the correction. So I see those revision dates on the drawings have been updated since the copy I have. Is that the current revision date, or was that updated again today? or
Those were
yesterday?
updated today with the plans that were approved by Greg Eldridge.
So those should be 1214s?
No, they're still 12/12.
The site plan is dated 12/12.
But
And
all
then-
that list of revision dates, the 12/12 is correct on the current drawings. Is that what?
Correct.
Okay, does anyone have any other changes then? You see the peer review letter dated today's date, and signed by Greg Eldridge. I see that that's on there, the very last letter. And where was Lisa's letter already added in, or is this the
Nope,
place?
I'm gonna add it in right now.
Okay.
I'm just borrowing it from, thank you.
And did we want to add in various emails from residents received on and prior to December 14th? That's a question for the board, and I believe someone had mentioned it before, but.
I think it's good to include them in that category, so it's clear that we review them and we consider them.
Is there emails?
I think that first email just needed to be various,
Okay.
or it could be, I just wanted to look, I wanted to make sure there's more than one.
I would just make it plural.
That's fine.
Is that okay, or does anybody want?
Maybe it's emails received by residents. Emails received by the planning board from residents regarding the application.
How about resident emails received by the planning board? Just, it's fine,
That's
but
fine.
it's just simpler.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. So on this one, point 4, prior to the issuance, nope, right where you are. Point 4,
Mm-hmm.
prior to the issuance, that also ends Town of Ashland with emergency contact information for site supervisor or for the site, emergency contact information for who?
Contractors?
I think that's a kind of a typical,
For the site is the intent, seems to me. So if something happens at the site,
that might be true. I just.
somebody can be
it just-
contacted.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the intent, I was just gonna open one. I think that's a, having trouble opening new things here. I think that's a kind of a typical, condition. So I was just gonna see how it read on something else. Can go on without me while I try to find something.
Item 6, you can say after 3 years, you said that was the new law.
Yes.
In the decision, it refers to like what, I think it's last census plans dated September 27, 21.
Oh, that has to be updated down here.
And the revision date, like, so I don't quite get what that all is, yeah.
Nope. I have to make sure they match.
So tell me when you're done with that, Peter.
I'm all done.
Don't want to interrupt your thought process. So on that number 4 that I did look up the Minda special permit. And so the last word on that is emergency contact information for site supervision. Just to be consistent with Yeah, it doesn't need to be capitalized, but so emergency contact information for site supervision is what we have on our other documents.
That's his signature block.
And the letter from Haley Ward, that was already added in, is that right?
That was added in today, correct?
Okay, you took off the highlighted part that you sent out earlier and added in the.
Yep, this is the
Word.
peer review. It's highlighted right here in gray.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Then at the very end of the document in the decision. I think that's the. Okay. All right, yep, so that was the revision date that wanted to make sure was on there. Okay. All right, anything else that anyone can see? All right, is there any further discussion? Someone want to offer a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application. I just don't have it in my screen. What is the name of it? Sorry.
400 Cedar Street,
Uh,
special permit modification?
400 Cedar Street, special permit modification for the T-Mobile antenna.
Is there a second?
Second.
And any further discussion? All right, then a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye.
Do we need to vote specifically for the decision, Peter, or is this sufficient, what we just did?
This is sufficient. I think we
Okay.
voted for it.
Oh. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought we were actually
Oh,
voting
good.
for the.
Okay.
Yep, I'm sorry. I just do
Is
want to make
everyone
note.
okay with that? That we were actually voting for the.
Yes, no, that's fine. It just, we read it as the, we didn't read the title of the decision. We read the title of the
Application.
application.
Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
are we supposed to read the title of the decision itself?
We can,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, do we I don't know if we have to.
No, I think the vote was
Yeah,
formalized.
then I think we're good.
The one thing I do want to say is that this is a situation where, yes, we gain the votes. However, typically everybody signs the decision. And so I don't know if, if one person, if we want to make a motion to allow one person, in this case, I would ask the clerk to sign the decision, and/or if the applicant would be okay if I could file the decision by next Wednesday with the town clerk, which then would allow all members of the planning board to sign it.
Just so procedurally, the hearing is.
Procedurally, the hearing is closed.
Okay.
And they voted to approve the application. Now, typically, every member of the planning board signs his decision.
Right.
Now, since I have 3 members on Zoom, 2 members that voted.
Right.
I can't have everybody sign it here tonight.
Got it.
So therefore, if you would allow me time,
Right, because we extended till tomorrow. I say, sure, yes, we can.
would you concur that would allow me to file the decision by end of day next Thursday, which would be the
17th.
17th,
Because you're trying to get
No,
everyone's
it's not-
signature?
correct.
I think that's the right decision, if we can do that. I think in light of the public comment, we should take the responsibility and all
Sure.
sign it.
Okay,
Yep, thank you for.
okay.
I
Peter,
agree.
and one other question. Do we need to formally close the public hearing, or does our vote automatically?
We can
do-
formally close the public hearing at this point.
I'm sorry?
We can formally close the public hearing with a motion.
Okay. I will make a motion that we close the public hearing for 400 Cedar Street special permit modification. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
I am Tricia Kendall, aye. Okay. So Peter, you will need us to come in to sign anytime between now and Tuesday, right?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
And, yes. And,
All right. Okay.
okay.
Thank you to the applicants and also to all the residents who came to participate. We do appreciate, we do want to hear your voices. Next on the agenda is 9049 Homer Avenue. This project has, as you know, requested a continuance. I believe, Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they just needed more time. They were busy
Correct.
holidays. Okay.
Correct, excuse me. So, working with the applicant on 9 to 49 Homer Street, there was obviously a long conversation at our last meeting regarding the palette, so the color, the warmer, and the cool. And so therefore, in working with the applicant, is my, here. They have requested more time to put together the color samples, as we requested, then also to continue to check off some of the outstanding items. So on December 13th, we did receive an email, from Attorney Terry Morris that was filed with the town clerk, and therefore he's requesting to extend the public hearing to January 11th, which is going to be our first public meeting in the new year. And furthermore, he is looking to extend the date that we have to file a decision to March 1st, 2024.
I have a question. Are we allowed to discuss this at all, or is it simply we have to approve the continuance?
So we can discuss, would you like to discuss matters surrounding the continuance or the application?
The application. It's really planning board business about the application, but I don't know if we're allowed to discuss that.
So we're not typically.
Why don't you put it out there, Kate, and then Peter, we can understand what it is and see if it's
So
appropriate.
I believe we had a list of things going to the applicant of sort of open items.
Mhm.
Some of them were somewhat under our control, so I kind of wanted to see where that stands, because we just keep like waiting, not waiting, we get everybody confused. And then also I'd sent to, I think Trish, but maybe copied Peter, about adding, I don't know, I think
You're
early.
being attacked by
I
a
know.
fly.
I think early on,
I'm starting to be concerned. I feel, I'm so sorry.
The sustainability checklist, I think, did go to the applicant, but I think I asked that be added to the memo of what's open. And then I just wanted to try to deal with maybe the things that are a little bit in our court to make sure we're doing everything we can, that they're not open still.
So regarding that checklist, I did receive your email. Oh, did you get it?
Wow. First shot, yeah.
So regarding the email, I did get your email. I did add that, and I'm working to continue to update that checklist.
So they're like things that we talked a couple times about getting town council opinion on things, and I really hope that we don't show up at another meeting and like waiting for that again. Those are the kind of things I'd like to kind of get a status check-in or find out if there's anything we can do. I think there's a few open things with maybe some of the town reviews. Can we tighten up all that stuff?
I imagine things are going to go a little slower over these next few weeks, but Peter and I did talk shortly after our last meeting about updating that list and also adding the planning board items that were a part of the design review committee list that you had mentioned, adding the sustainability list and trying to go through and say what was kind of resolved, what was, that we actually had something in writing that it was resolved. So Peter and I did kind of go through those things. I'm not sure that it was, if it was completed or added to the binders after knowing that this was going to continue. But we have been talking about that. So just so you know.
And I guess in addition to my concern about some of those, just everybody's busy, a little bit fall off our plate, that I think the applicant has a right to say, I'm still working with GCG, but we know there's some open things, and I feel like we could end up in the same thing, like, oh, I was supposed to get a traffic study, but I didn't, and not review. So do we have any responsibility to say there isn't a traffic study that exists, and if you come in January without a traffic study, I fear you will not be on the path to March 1st. I mean, that's those kind of things. I feel like we have to kind of step up where this really stands if we want to help kind of not have this just waiting all the time.
I think that's fair, and I think we expressed that at a few of the recent meetings where we're showing our frustration over not over the project, but over the process and the delays. But Peter, if that list can be buttoned up, and sent to the board and sent to the applicant saying, these are things that must be completed for the project to move forward. Would that be appropriate to?
Yeah, I
make
think
sure
I think that can be
understand?
appropriate and arranged, to get that list together and to get it over to the applicant. And I know, yes, I have to go back and take a look at it and work on it. So.
Okay. And I'm happy to take a look at it too, because we were talking about it together to make sure it was updated.
Yeah. That can
Great
happen.
idea.
That can happen.
Kate, are you good on that now?
Yeah, I just, the stuff that is in our court too, though, I didn't specifically hear answers about that, but I get it that it's being worked on, but I really, I would be frustrated if we kind of keep hearing the same, I haven't gotten it yet. I guess I'll just be honest, the one about town council opinion about the grinder pump, because that was brought up twice and we still haven't seen it, so, because that may be more investigation when we get an answer, right? So those are the kind of things I would like to see.
Okay, I can put that on my list. My obviously, now that that's on my radar, I'll make sure that's first and foremost, and I can send out an email tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important. If you have priorities, put them out there so we know what your priorities are, because it might be tough to tackle the whole list at once. So, okay. Anyone else? Priorities on that list or anything you want to add? Okay. All right, then, is this January 11th we're continuing this to, Peter?
Yes, January 11th, and then the decision due date will be moved to March 1st.
Okay, I will make a motion that 9049 Homer Avenue site plan and special permit application is continued to January 11th with the decision date pushed out to March 1st.
I'll second it.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So that is continued. Next on our agenda is a continued discussion with the Sustainability Committee regarding the development of the new tree bylaw. I don't see anyone online here for that. Peter, is there anyone in the room?
Yes, Margie Grushel and Chuck Litz are in the room.
Oh, so I did not see them in the room. I can only see the heads that are in front, so.
They've been patiently listening to all of our proceedings so far.
Okay. So, all right, so I think this is kind of an update about where things are. Is there?
Yeah, so I think it's an update from where we are. Excuse me. So I haven't produced and put together any updated information, and I don't know if Margie has put together any updated information. But Margie, would you like to speak and to move the conversation?
To introduce myself.
Please introduce yourself with your name and address for the record.
Margie Gassell, 8 Adams Road. I didn't put together any updates, but to summarize where we are, I sent you my comments relating to your last meeting. And I would like to ask that looking forward, that we plan to discuss remaining issues that you would like to discuss at the remaining 4 meetings in January and February, so that we can have the public hearing in March.
So you're asking for like a plan of how we're going to use the remaining 4 meetings?
I think it would be good to determine that, and based on the last discussion, there are a couple things in my mind that I assume you would want further discussion about. That was a couple new ideas, one being the clear cut idea, and how we would define it and how we would incorporate it, and then there was the suggestion, I'm not sure if the clear cut would address the other suggestion about concerns about potential tear downs in the future. Maybe that's not an issue that we need to discuss, but it seemed like it was kind of hanging.
So, Trish, I know you're virtual, so if I'm kind of overstepping the bounds of my role as vice chair, but my concern is that it's almost 10 p.m. and I don't know, like, I want to honor the fact that you're here, and I would very much like to pick some topic that we can focus on today. It sounds like you're suggesting to prioritize like planning, like how are we actually going to make it through 4 meetings? So one way to do it, like I'm looking at your memo to us that you sent to us November 30th, and it looks like numerically there are 8 items. I think it says 7, but it's 8. I think you kind of skipped a number once. So there's 8 specific items that you wanted us to think about. Do you want to pick one of those to kind of focus on today and then plan out when we're going to handle the rest? What topic do you feel like we can make progress on?
I didn't bring the memo with me. I
Oh.
figured that you might have comments about it in response to my response.
So I mean, I'm going to just speak in support of a detailed plan to get us there, because the board actually received email, I think it was today, about someone that seemed surprised that we're talking about it. And I'm glad that they were able to find out. We do not want people to be surprised, and that was part of our original thought. If it's consistently showing up on our planning board agendas, we want to hear from people. So for that reason alone, I support having it continuously on our agenda. Not if we don't need to, but I believe there are open issues. And I think we saw tonight from that email that the board has probably some responsibility to try to keep making sure things aren't out of the public eye. So that would help with that.
Okay, and what I'm saying is that I would like to know what you consider to be issues that are important to you that we discuss. And perhaps you're not prepared to do that right now. I'm wondering if...
I guess, Trish, do you have were you thinking of meeting with the person that sent in the email, and would that be helpful feedback to bring as well, or what was your thoughts on that?
Well, and first, I think with Margie's comments, I think, which I have in front of me, I think it's just that, and I think next time we talk about this, we actually should be talking about line by line of the bylaw and what the bylaw says and crossing out sections and saying, oh, let's change this percentage and let's look at it in the document. I think all of our next meetings have to be looking at it in the actual bylaw document, or we won't get there. With our discussions will be too general. So it's either in the document and we talk about it, or it's not in the document and we say, hey, let's put it in the document right now. And then by the document, I mean the bylaw. So I think that's where our discussions should go. So next time, I think it's about discussing the bylaw and no other document, right? I mean, we can bring supporting stuff, but we want to focus on the bylaw. And I know Peter has been, working on that and, getting into shape, and it may still be rough, but that's how we're going to kind of get that document in the right place and not go off onto tangents, which, like we said before, some things may have to wait. In regard to that email, just to be completely transparent, I believe John Dudley, who's a business owner in town, he actually owns the building from which I rent space. So he is my business landlord. And he had reached out to Peter regarding the tree bylaw. Then he reached out to me. I think we spoke, I believe it was just yesterday. I encouraged him to, he, as his email said, he had concerns from the landowner developer point of view, like what this might mean for development in Ashland. I told him that the planning board is looking to hear diverse points of view, that we always need to consider all aspects of a problem. And so I encouraged him not just to talk to me, because I obviously do not represent the board, but to send a letter to the board as a whole. So this was addressed to me, but obviously went to the whole planning board. I also encouraged him to be able to come to a future meeting with anyone else who may have similar views, in order that we can understand those views and help take that into consideration as we potentially figure out the real detailed parts of the bylaw. So that's where and so I wasn't surprised to receive this letter today after talking to him yesterday.
So before you spoke, Trish, I was going to ask whether, if I were to provide you with an updated draft, that would facilitate your decisions about what points you want to address. And it sounds like, yes, that would be the case.
Yeah, I think that's where we, kind of need to be.
My plan is to take the draft that I finished today and share it with the Sustainability Committee and get their comments at our meeting on Tuesday, after which point I can share with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. My one suggestion for the board is, I think there's a massive benefit to having a public discussion, obviously, about the draft when we have it ready. On the other hand, I think the work to fix the draft is work that cannot be done at 10 o'clock at night. It's work that requires true kind of collaboration and might take a few hours to get done right. And so I was going to suggest a retreat with the sustainability folks to really focus on a working session to air out the draft. The retreat would obviously be open to the public if people want to show up, but it wouldn't be a public hearing. And then out of that, taking a draft to a public discussion so that controversial items that maybe were gray areas in the working session can then be aired out more publicly, like, hey, all right, so we kind of have these sections of it that maybe we didn't all love or that we argued about that we can air out more publicly. So I'm just suggesting, because I feel like my brain, this topic tends to be later on in our agenda, and I feel like my brain is no longer at its full battery, and therefore I always worry that we could do so much if we had like a retreat focused 2 hours to work through this and get to a draft and be done with a draft. Just throwing that out there.
I think that's a great idea.
after
Yeah.
you guys take your first stab at a draft.
Right.
I think you need to write it, give it to us, and then maybe the planning board should have a retreat that you're invited to hear our debate and rewriting. That's kind of what I'm proposing.
But one question, Anna. First of all, you're not fooling anyone. Your brain is at full power now.
Okay, here you go.
So, what would
All
be
I
wrong
heard
with-
was my brain is at full power.
what would be wrong with doing it on an open meeting, but putting it first in the agenda? Because I agree with you. We have to devote proper time.
Oh, I'm all for doing it out in the open. I just think it should be earlier on. If like what I'm saying is if we keep
No, I
if
got
we
it.
can if we only have time for it at the end of an agenda,
No,
then
no,
I
no,
think
no.
we need a
agree.
retreat.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I am in favor of putting it if we can in the front of the agenda. That would be my suggestion. But I do believe that we need to hear all the voices from everyone, just like Tricia mentioned, and I've been an advocate to make sure that this goes through a public so that it is successful. So I would just propose if we have room on the agenda to put it like first in line as soon as we can and go over, let's get that draft for sure, because we need to see it. And then we probably will be prepared to attack it head on early, if it's possible.
Can I? Chuck Lids, 150 Oregon Road. I wonder if we could have a small group of perhaps one member of the planning board, Margie, myself, Peter, Samantha, no, and just try to work out an agreed thing that the sustainability committee could then approve, and then we can have either in a separate meeting largely for you or however, but it seems to me that you need a draft that you can assume that we're in sustainability is in agreement with, because then, you can say, okay, no, we don't like this, or no, we haven't listened to this group. But until you have that sort of thing, it seems to me it's going to be very hard to make a definitive decision.
Yeah, I mean, I
By the
think
way,
that's,
I completely agree with this has to be public. This is going to have to go before town meeting. We can't do this in secret. Thank you.
I wonder if we've kind of come to that point, not a stopping point, but maybe a point where it's really great to have the public comments for us to move to the next step. I think the draft that was shared last time was at a good place. There's a lot of work that the team has already done, and I wonder, even though that's not the final draft or final version that's going, but you're kind of that midpoint before now and the 4 meetings that you have. Wonder if we should really focus on public comments. It's like a focus session on public comments only, and then we take that and then we can have a mini group like you suggested, and then go back and refine it. And the 3 meetings that we have left in the early year, we are literally refining it. We have the comments, we're working on it, and then you can refine it to the end.
I think the hard thing, I mean, I'm always open to public comment. If opening it to public comment without a draft feels a little bit backwards to me, because I feel like the public deserves to comment on the draft. The public, the idea of like just public comment, whether a tree law bylaw is good or bad, I'm not sure that's as helpful as here's what we have in mind. What do you think?
But I think the last time what they shared was at a good place to have covered a lot of that. There's a lot of those small minor corrections that maybe that can come as a draft, but I think that was good amount of info, that document that they shared last time, for people to discuss. And if there's something that's absolutely not making sense in those few pages, maybe that's what we tackle and probably attack.
I mean, there were sections like incentives that were blank, and there were sections that had text that was not filled in.
I would really
Marcelo, are you
prefer
looking-
that you use the draft that I completed.
Marcelo, are you looking to jump in?
I was just gonna say, I agree with Deepa. To me, I feel that
Not in the binder.
getting way far down the line without proper public input, maybe just counterproductive. I heard
Marcelo, there's a train, and I'm having trouble hearing you without the train.
that must be just my accent.
No, for some reason the volume is low.
Can you hear me now?
Volume is very low for whatever reason.
Is it just Marcelo
Okay.
that's low?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying, I kind of agree with Deepa that the public input before we get down the line too far and not include whatever we hear, it's could be counterproductive. I heard Margie saying that there's a draft that was advanced up to today. What if that is enough, like Deepa was saying, a good draft that included, finalize all the blanks that we had before, and maybe we start getting feedback from people in the community, because we have not had anything at this point, and that concerns me a little bit.
so. I would propose, and it's kind of a combination of these things, that that there is kind of a small group that meets soon before the next planning board meeting on the 11th. It doesn't have to be a complete retreat. I think that'd be hard to get together. But a small group of sustainability advisor, Peter, someone from the planning board, could be 2 people from the planning board. If we can get 2 people to volunteer, to go over, to have a first set of eyes on that final draft, make sure it reads, make sure we understand your writing. We're, kind of looking at the recent draft, and then kind of clarify that. We bring it to the planning board on the 11th early. And then maybe it's ready for the public the next week. Maybe there's a public forum mid-January, on this, with a document that the planning board fully understands, that the sustainability committee fully understands and has and can support, and then we can have that conversation with the public. Things can still be changing, but there's something down on paper that we can cross out this number and put another number, or so it's something kind of definitive. Does that kind of mix things there and get us to January 11th with a document that we're looking at, hopefully for the final time before a public forum?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Peter, we would be looking for a date, I think, the week after our January 11th meeting for some kind of public forum, right,
That's what
the 2 ballots.
the Sustainability Committee had planned to do also.
Does the
great.
Sustainability Committee have a meeting that night, the week of this 15th in January?
I have to look at my calendar and guess if we're going to be meeting that night.
We have
Okay.
not been as consistent about meetings. as
We don't meet the particular week of the month. We meet every other week except when we don't, when it doesn't get posted.
And that is in part the vice chair's problem, because the vice chair, namely me, doesn't have authority to post it. So I have to send it to the chair, who sometimes posts it and sometimes doesn't.
But just to clarify, why do you want to know if we're meeting right after your meeting?
Because if you're having a public forum, I would say you could have, the Sustainability Committee could host a public forum.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
we can do
have
that.
one.
Yeah.
We can do it together if you want, but yeah, it was our
Wait,
plan
well-
after the holidays to start the public forums.
Not
So
to,
Margie,
but not every
Yeah.
weeknight I'm available to come to a night meeting. Please respect my schedule.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's kind of one of those.
I
Okay.
would think that, well, this is just me, but I would think having it be a planning board meeting will get more attention, because the community does perceive you as having power, where they perceive us as being source of pressure group.
So,
Policy.
So I, for one, like the idea, if we can find a way to put this on top of our agenda, planning board agenda, make it a public hearing and perhaps put it up on the town website as, you know, the planning board is having a meeting and there happens to be a public component relating to the tree bylaw early on in the meeting. I would highly recommend that approach. And I would like to have the draft be available at that public meeting so that as we're listening to the public, we can reflect upon the draft, take notes, see, and that document is available to the public. So even if the public is just coming in to talk about the general concept, they can look at the draft and say, ooh, I don't like this section. I think that will be a very useful exercise for the public.
So right now, on January 11th, if we're putting this on our meeting, already.
Tricia, you cut out.
This is where we need 5G. Just kidding.
Excuse me, Tricia, you cut out. We're having issues in town hall. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yes? No?
Yep. We're back.
Okay. So, as Peter disappeared again, I have no idea if you can hear me. Can you hear me,
I
Marjorie?
can hear you.
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay, so we just in this meeting put two public hearings on our January 11th agenda. Is that when we were looking to also have a public forum for the tree bylaw?
Well, one of those tends
our
to not
meeting
show
right
up.
there.
One
What's
of
that?
those tends to not show up. But I think that's important.
Do you not want to discuss your input before we have the public forum?
It sounds like, in light of the fact that we're starting to receive public comment, and I'm starting to agree with Deepa's point that there could be benefits to attracting the public early on in the process. It doesn't mean that's going to be their only opportunity. But it sounds to me like, to the extent there's some public interest coming, we should invite those folks who've reached out to come to that meeting. And we should ask sustainability to bring a draft that can be publicized and put on our website, yada, 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 so that the public input can be kind of more official and we can have your draft for it. And I'd like to see the public's reaction to a draft so that when we're thinking and talking about a draft, we have context for what does the public care about, what bothers them, what excites them. That would be my curiosity.
I hate to volunteer, but I wonder, Tricia, if we start a bit early on 11th, kind of give this enough time and justice to this important topic, and then we continue with the other commitments that we do have on 11th already slated. So I hate to say that, but I know it's better than spending 2 hours of a separate retreat.
I could do 6:30.
I think it's maybe easier if we start early.
Sure,
have a dedicated time.
I could do 6:30 that night.
And this would be for the public forum component?
Yep.
We could do that. It doesn't have to be a part of our official, a public forum doesn't have to be, all of us don't have to be present for a public forum. If someone can't make that, our meeting can start right after the public forum, right? Like, we don't all have to be at a public forum.
I would suggest we do a public forum at 6:30. We have our meeting at 7:15, and the first agenda item on our meeting could be this topic. And so the public can show up, talk about the draft, and then when we open up the record for our planning board meeting, we can discuss the public comment received at the public forum as we look at the draft together and discuss it. That way it's a very focused 45-minute session for the public, and the planning board can have a normal discussion with the sustainability folks at our normal meeting.
So that would total maybe an hour and a half, 6:30 to 7:15, 7:15 to 8 o'clock. So it'd have about an hour and a half for both components together of the public forum. Would that seems reasonable? And
I
then
think
we'll
that seems
continue.
reasonable
Okay.
and would satisfy Deepa's point and mine that we need some focused earlier in the day use of our brains.
Just as a point of information, there is a further draft than what was seen last time, so We're not there yet, obviously, but we are a little further along, I think.
I think whatever latest you
we can
have.
still have the preliminary meeting of you guys, two people from the planning board. I'm happy to do it if someone else can't. Peter, to still review with the sustainability committee, or, you know, a part of you, still review that document prior to the 11th in a small group.
If you
I
want,
think that
that's
might
fine.
still be a good idea, so. Because
Okay
you've
with
already
me.
said you have another draft that no one has eyes on for us, so, okay?
Yeah, I'm happy, I'm back in town on the 2nd, so I'm happy to meet the week of the 2nd. Well, the 2nd,
Yeah.
3rd, 4th, or 5th.
Okay.
Um,
So just to confirm, I said that after the Sustainability Committee reviews the draft next week, I will send you a copy.
Okay,
Okay.
and then we will have a small group meeting the first week of January, or sometime before the 11th, and then we'll have this public forum on the 11th, intertwined with our meeting. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
And if members of the planning board can't make it before 7:15, then you can't make it before 7:15, okay?
Is
Because
a
it's really
public
for the public
forum
hearing.
hosted by the sustainability or the planning board?
You know what, we'll post it as a planning board meeting, but I'm just gonna break out the time as conversation, public conversation on tree, you know, proposed tree bylaw. And then I think we can use social media and our town website to kind of promote it. And then we will list specific times for that conversation. And then we'll have our public hearing starting at 8 o'clock.
We could also post it on our social media.
Yeah, I think it's kind of posted as a joint meeting almost.
Yeah,
To
it's-
make
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because both boards will need to, have it posted. So, okay.
I have another question.
Everyone agreed to that plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, separate question. It had been my intent to meet with developers, but I only encountered one along the way, but now I would like to speak with John Dudley, if that's okay. Can you hook me up?
Oh, sure.
Oh, introduce you?
Yes.
Yeah. Of course.
Great. Okay, are we done?
Just send me a separate email and I'll.
Okay, thank you.
Rob we have a comment from the audience. Mr. Rob Scher.
Question here.
Excuse me, Rob, can you please state your name and address?
Sure, Rob Scher, 41 Bay Colony Drive. Yeah, I've been feeling like a lurker here, so I thought I'd check in. So say hi to everybody, but also really thank you guys. Been through a tough meeting, that electromagnetic, that cell tower stuff. I will follow up a bit with town council. Doesn't seem like a very easy issue, but a lot of good thoughts. The other thing is, thanks both you guys and sustainability for moving ahead in this tree bylaw. I hadn't realized that the planning board was so strongly involved. So good for you guys for taking this on and working with sustainability. So just one note, in January, we are pushing the Valentine Forum for the 29th, but it sounds like you're earlier than that. So that sounds good. And I guess, just keep the select board in mind. We're going to be very interested in this as well, but that can happen later. So I think you guys have set out a very ambitious schedule and, good for you. I hope you can stick to it and get that out there. But I'm willing to, happy to help in whatever way I can. I can't speak for the board as a whole, of course, but there is a lot of interest and, as we prepare for the Springtown meeting, and we'll have our own, town manager forum and all that stuff later on. So as we get closer, there'll be more public input as well. So anyway.
Sorry, go ahead, Rob. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I was just wrapping up. So I want to, you guys are late enough as it is. Jeez.
I was going to suggest, I think it would be important, once there's a draft and we scheduled a public forum, to invite the select board and share the draft with them, so that if the select board wishes to lurk and participate and offer public comment at a public forum,
Sure.
they can also do that. I think that would be
And
a
later on,
helpful
do
exercise.
you guys see this as continue to be a joint kind of project, or is at some point is sustainability going to go on by themselves with this? How are you seeing this?
Well, I think it's as it's a zoning bylaw, it needs to go through the planning board, so
Okay, so you guys are going to stay with it?
we're inherently
Okay.
in the process.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, my hope is that this is a collaborative process that we can work together on and ultimately have support for the product. I would like to, at some point, get support from the select board as well.
Oh,
so
yes.
that ultimately we can present it to town meeting as a very successful joint
Right.
effort.
I would think we would anticipate a select board to get some kind of formal meeting at some point, or at least part of the warrant review, to review this, whether it needs to be how in-depth, but usually we expect, I would think, one or two representatives to come before us and review it at some point, so.
Got
All
it.
right.
Thank you.
Got a
Anyway, thank
plan?
you.
All right, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rob. All right, next on our agenda, yeah, no, we did continue Homer Ave, okay, Sustainability Committee, sorry, I'm off. Next is the re-release of Unit 19, 7 Belcher Circle within Lee Estates. Peter, can you give us the, little brief thing about
Sure.
what we're
So-
doing here so that everyone understands?
Sure. So I was contacted by an attorney, a title attorney that is obviously doing his due diligence on this property. This property is for sale, to my knowledge, and there's a purchase and sale agreement. Upon due diligence, they found that the lot was never, it was formally released. However, it was never recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So therefore, the attorney is asking the board for a re-release of the lot. And so within our documents here tonight, you can see that behind the agenda in the meeting, this lot, not lot, but unit number 19, known as 7 Belcher Circle, was released by the planning board on February 19th of 2003, along with unit 18, which is known as 5 Belcher Circle. This unit release within the subdivision known as Lear Estates. And this Lear Estates is a 55 and over condo community right off of Olive Street, past the community center on the left-hand side. The covenant is dated, the covenant here is within the application. So this covenant was for was put in with the subdivision. So therefore, with the release, however, with the failure to record this, the title attorney is asking for a re-release that I have put together here. And so the title attorney is just asking us to re-release the lot so they can then record it at the Registry of Deeds. Looking at all documentation, I see no issues why the planning board should not sign this as an administrative matter.
So there's, do we have any way of knowing there's no open issues like we had with, let's just say, Whittemore?
There's no open issues with Lear Estates. Lear Estates is a private road, and it's a 55 and older condo development. So therefore, there's no liability on the town regarding the roadway construction, or any items in that
And the bond is
matter.
closed, cleared up,
Yes.
there's nothing open with town for the past decade,
Yes.
and you scrubbed everything.
I
'cause
looked
I
at
do not
every
wanna
way,
do
and
Whittemore again.
No. And Lear Estates is it's a very mature project that was permitted back in 2001. And there's been no
I'm actually
issues.
pretty familiar with it. I used to live across the street from that estate. That's where I used to take the kids trick or treating when I lived over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very well-established community. It's fully developed. It was finished long before we, moved in there. So,
So they can't take that approved decision and just record that? I'm just curious, because I
So typically at the registry, they like to have something that's within the 6 months typically within 6 months. So I asked the applicant, what would you want to do here? I do have the release from '03 Do you want to do a true test copy with the town clerk? And/or would you like to apply, take this to the planning board for a re-release? And they stated that they preferred to come here for a fresh signature from the planning board and then take that to the registry of deeds. And so that's what I've done. I've done this in numerous times. This board has done it numerous times. There was actually a case that I found for Lee Estates, and what happens is the lot is released, right? It never gets recorded at the registry of deeds, and so therefore, decades down the line, when somebody does a title search, they find that there's this gap, right? And so therefore, this re-release just closes that gap within a title search.
So shouldn't this re-release refer to that 2003 planning board release? Because I didn't dig into this, and I'm going to trust Peter as a professional planner and the planning board then, because I see it documented. But without that reference, I don't feel comfortable signing it. So can we put the reference to the previous release in the one you're asking us to sign tonight?
I'm happy to. I don't see an issue with adding that, but I can tell you that the biggest item that the reference is to the covenant. And that's the legal document that they're looking for a release from. And so I'm happy to add a note as a re-release. So I've never had to do that, but I don't see an issue. And
well, I'm just going to be honest, based on Whittemore, I would be comfortable with adding that. But if you're asking me to release a covenant without seeing documentation that's, I would ask for a letter from town council that the covenant's released if we don't reference that other decision for me. But there's plenty of people that can sign it without me. I can abstain as well. So
I think that's fine. Peter, can you just add that in and
yeah, I'm happy to
refer to the earlier document and since it wasn't recorded, where is that something you can put into a document like this, or does it screw up the whole legal part of the document?
I don't think so.
It kind of gives it the history. It kind of says why we're doing this in 2023.
I may lean on our two attorneys to help me write this, but.
Peter, I'm curious, all the dates that you have on this paper, other than the April 9th that I see on the covenant, where does this July 25th, 2001 date appear at all?
Come again?
So it says July 27, 2001 versus July 25th in the covenant.
So those are dates of the site plan that were permitted. And so, and I can bring up, I have record of the full recorded site plan.
So should we attach all that to this document?
Well, typically you wouldn't attach it to a re-release, but if you would like to see it, just for the sake of the conversation, I can bring it up.
So Kate, what language are you proposing?
I think the re-release, which it says, right, but the re-release is contingent upon the 2/19/2000, well, it's dated 2003 release of the planning board. I'm basing my evidence why I should sign this on that decision back then.
Yeah, and did Peter send that? Did he send that around?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just referring to that document, which does refer, it's releasing, it's fully signed by the Ashland Planning Board in 2003. It talks about it says Unit 18, it says Unit 19, 5 Belcher Circle, and 7 Belcher Circle. So it kind of says that we're just cleaning up someone else's error. Right?
This is exactly what we're doing. We're just cleaning up someone else's error.
So if we can just refer to the earlier document, because it is part of the paper trail, then.
Challenge to the lawyer.
I was going to say this release is made upon the understanding in 2000 and
3? Was it 3 that you guys said?
Understanding
2003.
on 2003. Can I say by the then?
Okay, do you want to read that sentence to us?
Could I say, thus release is made with the understanding on February 19th, 2003, said unit was released by the then Ashland Planning Board.
You just need a D on release.
Yeah.
Released.
It reads a little bit awkward. I'm trying to figure out how to make it read better.
Okay.
This re-release rather than thus?
Yeah, this re-release is made with the understanding that on February 13th, with the understanding that
On February 19th, 2003, that, yeah, the said unit
Yep,
was released by the then Ashland Planning Board.
exactly. Perfect.
Is that suitable?
Yes.
And in this case, do we have to attach it because it was never filed? Like I,
So
that-
I can.
I think we should. Because that's a paper trail that'll disappear if it's not part of what we're signing tonight.
I
It looks like we
agree.
sat here and made it up, which we did, except we have. a piece
No,
of-
I agree. I found this in the building office. I found this in the building office file for that particular unit, you know,
Well,
so it's like,
let's attach it.
okay.
Released by the then Ashland Planning Board and attached here too.
No, that's not legal.
Here too.
Architects
legal
don't
to
say
me.
here too.
Is it just here too, like I said it?
Referenced therein,
Here
attached
too is one
here
word,
too.
isn't it?
One word,
Is it
yeah.
one word? It's getting late, I'm sorry. What? Here too, yeah, Tom Boyer says, Tom Boyer says a lot of things, but he doesn't say that.
Oh, my.
Sound good to everybody?
Should I make a motion?
Here to make a motion.
I make a motion that the planning board vote to re-release of covenant definitive subdivision plan Hillside Estates, Ashland, Mass.
I'll second it.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So, okay, got that done. Unless we have reports on any topics, we can skip down to the meeting minutes, I think, right?
Can I just, on number 8, I have item 8, comprehensive
Yep.
plan. So I just want to say to the board, I think I was remiss last meeting when it was late, like it is now, and I didn't bring up that I have, I guess it's, I don't want to speak for him, but similar concerns. Did we lose our, of, the decision-making process of the comprehensive plan without planning board input. And as a representative, I mean, we are supposed to bring those things back to you, and we went through that with a sort of revote of the document, but my understanding of that document was to be the collaborative with those 3 groups. So I have not seen a change yet. I do have concerns, and I would say I have the very same concerns if I can continue, because I don't right now feel like I'm representing the board. So there's a meeting coming up next week. I hope that we'll see some dramatic changes, but I definitely share that concern. I want to report that to the
And
board.
you mean a meeting of the steering committee?
Yeah.
Have you reported that concern to the steering committee, to the two co-chairs?
Yes.
All right. Can you ask them to put it on the agenda for that meeting so that it gets discussed for sure?
Yes.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would think that all groups.
And I'm just, yeah, I'm sorry, Tricia.
I was just going to say, I would think that all groups who are reporting back to their respective boards would feel, or committees or who they're reporting back to would feel that they are representing those boards or committees.
I would imagine yes, but as a planning board member for a comprehensive plan that we have statutory, I think that might be the difference. So I agree, and if I was representing not the planning board, I would not, well, I first would be having this conversation at the board, but I think it would be a very different thing. And I think there's a difference when I'm asked to represent the planning board in the process. I think the planning board has to be part of those decisions, however that comes about.
But isn't the planning board part of the decisions as being part of the steering committee?
Well, Marcelo, we don't need to rehash this, but we told you about incidents where decisions were made and planning board was not present. That has not been fixed yet.
But you are rehashing it, Kate. So I'm just asking the question. The revote of the document to me, and I guess everybody has a different reading. That's what I find. The document says that the steering committee will be the lead, and they will basically run the process moving forward, and with the help with the project management team when required. That's the way I read, and I read specific excerpt of it when we did that vote. If that is the case, that's why I'm asking if any concerns have been raised to the heads of that steering committee, because that's how I read that document. I just don't know what else to say.
Well, I mean, that may be that I have a different understanding and I might not be the right planning board representative to that group.
I don't know how you reach that conclusion, but if that's your conclusion, there's nothing that I can say about it.
Yeah, I think
it seems as though we're trying to force a way of operating of that committee that is not what is the general understanding, and if that could be a personal view of people on the matter, and I respect that. But I just don't understand.
Well, I think what made it clear to me a little bit when Deepa said it seems like a power struggle, and I had never considered it that way. I consider it a policy and a process. But if it's seen as a power struggle, then I would think the planning board should be in on reviewing the power things. And I really thought when this was ironed out at the beginning with the select board, town manager, and planning board, that was the way the planning board would be part of it. But yeah, we don't need, I'm just being fair to my colleagues and reporting where it stands and where I stand with the process.
And I totally appreciate it, but when Deepa made that comment, it was as part of the discussion, and that was the past. The way it ended is that we revoted to remove any power struggle. So going back to how the discussion started, I don't think it takes us anywhere.
Yeah, I agree with Marcelo. I thought we took away the power struggle because the power, according to the document, lies with the steering committee as a whole, of which our two planning board members are a part.
That's absolutely, I agree to that. But if the steering committee is never making decisions, I think that's a nuance that maybe if you weren't there and seeing the meetings, or maybe don't have the same concerns that I do.
So as much as I enjoy this back and forth and trying to figure it out, I feel like we're rehashing some of the past, where what I'm hearing from Kate is more that she is of the opinion that this continued debate is showing that maybe she shares my concerns, that she and I may not be the right representatives to the steering committee. That's what I'm hearing. So I don't want to spend a lot of time. I personally don't think there's a lot of value to us to continuing this debate at every single planning board meeting. But I think there is a lot of value, and I appreciate, because at the last meeting, I was the only one who spoke up, and I certainly appreciate that Kate is sharing a similar concern. And hopefully next week at the steering committee meeting, my concerns and Kate's will be addressed, and we don't have to keep this coming back as a topic.
No, I apologize for that. I thought that if I didn't mention it, it looked like I didn't have that concern. So, but that's it. Thank you.
I totally agree with Anna. I mean, I think after that meeting, there was one meeting, and this is going to be the second one. And this is no, and I hope that things improve. Like Anna said, let's see how it goes. That's why it's important to raise it to the chairs and get that discussion going. What I have to say, just like you feel that way, Kate, I feel that we are rehashing something that was discussed, and every time I hear, they didn't make a decision this way, that way, and I may not be the right person. Okay, that seems like I want to use the right word. Seems like a suggestion that is consistently thrown out there, and I feel pressured by that suggestion. So if that is the case, I don't know how to resolve it. I don't want you to ever be part of something that you don't feel that is working or that is unfair to you. But I just don't know how to solve that problem. And just we try to solve it, to remove the idea that Team B disbanded. We did not want that. We want the structure of what we agreed to remain. But then we keep hearing the same concept without having given the time for the steering committee to do just exactly that. So that's how I feel about it.
So you got cut off a little bit in the room, Marcelo, because we lost the power for about a second. And what I'll say is, to me, there seems to be a focus on planning board jurisdiction, at least for me, relative to the role of the planning board in the comprehensive plan process. I think at the next steering committee, it will be very clear how the steering committee leadership approaches the jurisdiction of the planning board. And if my role in that room is not productive to that leadership position, then I would assume another member of the planning board might be a better fit for that role. That's at least my position. So I'm not saying that somehow you should be under pressure to solve anything other than someone else on this board may be the right person to step up to the role that's created by the steering committee if that role is contrary to a specific planning board's perspective. So my perspective is that planning a comprehensive plan process is squarely within the authority of the planning board. And so if I see that the steering committee meeting is such where it's clear that that's not the way leadership of the steering committee views the process, then I do see it as a power struggle that is not productive, and therefore I would step back. So I hope that clears it up, because it's not a matter of you solving it. It's really a matter of me stepping out if I am getting in the way of whatever leadership position that's presented at that meeting.
And I agree with that. And I personally don't see that. Yeah, we keep going about the jurisdiction of the planning board and everything. From everything I've seen, and I'm not a lawyer, so I just say from the architect's point of view, the reason this whole process is taking place is in part because of you, because you were passionate enough to push it through, and we all sign up on it, and it's moving forward, and it's taking place. So that was leadership right there. The idea that the planning board has to have a final say on every decision there, I'm not sure about that. I think at some point we need to let go this idea that we have to control it because it's under the jurisdiction. I get it, but it is why is the town's master plan, is the town's comprehensive plan, it's not the planning board's comprehensive town. And I think we need to let that process develop as an organic town project, not a planning board project. I don't think why we have to be attached to that concept, but I respect if that's how you feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the whole point was to give the power to the residents and to the people of Ashland, and this was something that was supposed to come out of what they wanted, not what we wanted. And so I thought the fact that we could get two co-chairs out of that group that was chosen by the planning board and the select board to rise up and lead the people, I thought was exactly what we had hoped for. I didn't think it would happen, but exactly what we had hoped for. And then the planning board and select board would step back and allow the people to lead. That was kind of my, I don't know, glorious interpretation of where I thought we were going. So if that's not the direction, if that's not what you signed up for, then I think, like Marcelo said, I think that's something you need to decide for yourself. So, and then we'll figure out what to do with that. So, but if there's no other comments tonight, and I'm sure it'll come up again, we just need to get through the meeting minutes that we stay on board.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is I don't disagree with anything you said. I think very strong leadership of the steering committee is extremely important, and select board or planning board should not be running the steering committee. So I actually agree with that fully. I don't think this has anything to do with strong leadership of the steering committee. I think it's more about how are data decisions made between meetings of the steering committee? Is that a town hall decision with the co-chairs? Does that involve select board members? Does it involve planning board members? I'm of the opinion that it should involve planning board members, those decisions that are made between meetings. I don't think that opinion somehow says, ooh, the chair should have no role. And I personally take offense that saying that this planning board has a jurisdictional role somehow belittles the chairs. And this has become kind of turned into that, as if me or Kate are attacking the chairs. And frankly, that's one of the key reasons I'm starting to question whether this is the right role for me, because it's a complete misunderstanding of what jurisdiction means to somehow turn it into this sort of, oh, you must be saying that the chairs have no role, when it's actually the exact opposite. It's about supporting the leadership and offering planning board expertise to the process.
Yeah, and as planning board, it would mean the planning board, like bringing issues, as representatives of us, bringing issues back to the 5 of us or the 6 of us in order then to bring them back to the steering committee.
Oh, absolutely. And that whole thing with the experts on different survey topics was the prime example where had it been handled consistent with what I'm presenting, Kate and I would have brought that document to you for feedback and input as to who the experts should be, and then the planning board would contribute to the project management group our input for who the experts should be.
Right, so we can call that, as I think was acknowledged, kind of an early mistake, but I think we have to move on. It's time to move on from that and to see what happens at the next meeting and the next meeting. This thing is still in its infancy, so do we have to judge everything by the early mistake, or can we all do better, right? And kind of move on. So I would say let it play out a little bit, right? Let it play out. Go in with an open mind. Everyone should go in with an open mind to be, and see what happens.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I'm looking forward to that meeting. I'm still on the steering committee as a planning board rep. And so I remain hopeful that other than saying it should have been handled better, it actually will be handled better. And I appreciate Kate reinforcing that she apparently shares my concerns. And I certainly do not want anything I've stated here tonight or a prior meeting to put pressure on anyone on this board. It's more about finding a constructive way forward. And if I feel that I'm getting in the way of the success of the process, I think that other people on this board can step up and do an excellent job in my place. And it's not some kind of pressure point. It's really about wanting this to succeed.
I think we'll obviously wait for you to decide your position on that. If you have any questions, obviously you can bring them to us, but otherwise it feels like kind of a personal decision, and if we can help in any way with that personal decision, let us know, but I'm not sure what that would be, so. All right, but I appreciate, I think it's, we have to be open and obviously transparent in the discussion, but I'd say let it play out a little bit now that these heavy duty discussions have happened, to see if things can resettle in a different way that's more productive. So, so obviously a comprehensive plan will continue to be on our agenda. So there's always another opportunity to talk about that. Meanwhile, we just have to wrap up these meeting minutes from October 26th. We can look at first, and then November 9th. I think these were remarkably a couple of our shorter meetings, so maybe they won't be so bad. Peter, do you have a October 26th ready?
You want to put it up on screen?
Sure, if it's quick. I had very few corrections.
Yeah, I have it. I'm looking at it. It's right in front of me right now. So.
I'm sorry?
It's right in front of me right now, but I can open it.
It's right in front of you right now. Okay. Sorry, we're having trouble hearing, but I guess for me on the October 26th, the only things I had was line 72. You're just missing a, well, not you, we're just missing a D. The board discussed an updated letter. Or I guess it probably doesn't even, it's not even that big of a change. Line 72, adding a D to update. Yeah, that might have been. Oh, I know. The other thing I had was after line 92. This was when we were discussing the first letter that Anna and Kate had brought to the memo, had brought to the planning board. And I thought that should end by just saying the board agreed to request that the select board add this topic to the joint meeting on November 15th.
Appreciate your prior comment. I guess I read it differently. I think update later, it's almost should be hyphenated, but I think that's what it meant. Isn't it?
Oh, I think you're right, actually. Yeah. So,
because it's an update letter from Ms. Tesmeninsky. So
yes.
It's not updated. Oh,
yeah, it's not updated.
I guess the D would make sense. Okay.
No, I think you're right. I don't think it needs a D. No D on 72.
This is what happens with minutes at 10:50 at night.
But I do think that other sentence needs to be added after 92. Something like the board.
I'm just impressed with Marcella's pronunciation of my last name. So,
well, I've been working on my Russian.
So, Peter, did you hear that sentence that I gave, or something similar?
Yeah, I said the board agreed to have the select board add
this topic to the joint November 5th meeting.
Yep.
Something like that. Okay. That's all I had.
I'm just curious, the line 73 where concerning the integrated comprehensive plan team and process, should that be very particularly address the project management team versus comprehensive plan team? Because the concern was the challenges within the project management team and not the overall process.
I would say that's a
Right.
good change.
So instead of saying concerning the integrated comprehensive plan team, should we say project management team?
Correct.
What line are we on?
73, sorry.
Okay.
I think that's right. It makes it seem like the concern is for the entire comprehensive plan team,
Yeah.
whereas the discussion truly was about the project management team.
So project management.
Comprehensive planning management, comprehensive plan, project management team.
Okay.
Try to say that 5 times quickly.
Got it.
Any other, oh, we're glad to have you back on screen there. Are there any other changes to October 26th?
Nope.
Okay, I will make a motion to accept the October 26th meeting minutes as amended.
I'll
Is there a
second it.
Roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. Okay, so on to the November 9th meeting minutes. It seemed to me that in absent, it seems to me that Peter should list himself as absent
Oh, yeah.
because it's so unusual, you know? So, and then on line 82, I just felt we should add Samantha's last name as the sustainability coordinator. It just says Samantha.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting tired. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm tired.
On line
That's
128, I think we considered reviewing and correcting our bios, but we did not. I think we were like, hey, should we do this? And then we were like, not tonight. So maybe we should remove line 128 because I think from what I recall, Tricia, you brought the bios in and you were like, we should do this, but I don't remember us actually making edits. Am I wrong?
I think actually the things had been in the folders for a while. And then
Okay.
I said, hey, let's take this opportunity. And a couple of people said, I did mine, or
Okay.
it's good as it is, or whatever.
Yeah, maybe we say some members reviewed and corrected their bios because I did not do mine.
Okay. The members except Anna reviewed and
Yeah,
corrected their bio.
I failed the assignment. I did not do my homework. So I just want to be accurate that
Yeah, that's fine. We can put some, just change.
some
that
members
as-
reviewed and corrected their bios and
Keep it general.
certain someones did not.
Since I was absent on 9th, did Amanda not vote for those 2 public hearing?
I don't think she was able to.
Oh, she couldn't? Okay.
No, because I don't think she's been sitting on it for the whole time.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right, should I make a motion, Tricia? Are there any other changes to November 9th? I'll make a motion to approve the November 9th, 2023 minutes as amended.
second,
Second.
and a roll call vote.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye. Kate?
Oh, Catherine Jersey, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. Amanda should be able to vote on this one, I think. But it doesn't really matter. So, okay, we're good. Anything else before we adjourn?
I just wanted to make a quick note. I did send out the 2024 schedule. The only one thing was in February, Our second meeting falls the week of February break. And I don't know what everyone's travel plans. There are 5 Thursdays in February. It is a leap year. There's 29 days. Sounds crazy, but it's true. So we do have an option to move that second meeting to the 5th Thursday, which would obviously open up that short week, which I know some people do travel for, including myself, selfishly. So just to give everyone a heads up on that.
I would suggest we do that.
Okay.
I won't be there that day as well, so I would say avoid school vacation week.
I think it's a good call
Okay.
to move
Okay.
that. If the
Amanda?
rest of the board is at.
Yep.
Yeah, that works. We don't have anything in February.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So.
And
all
Tricia,
right.
I'm sorry, totally. I thought we were voting on the minutes and not adjourning. Apologies.
Oh, no. No, we were voting on the minutes. We were voting on the minutes. You're good. So, if there's nothing else, anyone?
Nope, we're good.
I will make a motion that we adjourn at 10:55 and enjoy a little holiday break.
I'll second that.
And a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And
Amanda Hayes, aye.
Trisha Kendall, aye. All right. Have
Happy
a good
holidays,
break, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
All right. Bye-bye.
I just gotta get at the.